I'm just an ordinary worker. I carry cement bags all day long, and when I get home, I have no energy left. The only good thing Endu does is play a virtual reality game. People say that whoever clears this game will gain unlimited wealth, but when he finished it, only 1 million dropped into his account. He falls asleep happy, but when he wakes up, the world has been invaded by monsters. The game has become reality, and he's the only one who knows everything, and now he's going to break the entire system. A young man breathes heavily behind his VR gear. Game cleared flashes before his eyes, confirming he passed the final test. He can scarcely believe he actually beat it. This was the Full Dive VR action game, Prophecy Online, an open-world RPG promising hyper-immersion, letting players truly sense sounds, smells, and touch. The official description boasted that anyone who cleared the title would win 1,000 years of riches. Hardly anyone took those words in the synopsis seriously. He used to scoff at it himself, jokingly demanding the cash transfer while enjoying quests. Meanwhile, two workers chat about grabbing ramen for lunch. That day, Endo was clearing debris under a blistering sun. Unable to find steady employment, he survived on manual labor at construction sites. During his lunch break, his phone suddenly vibrates. It's a notification from the game administrator, even though he thought he'd turned those off. The message congratulates him as King, the #1 player, and states the reward has been wired to his bank account. He wonders if they're sending phishing emails now, but decides to check anyway. He never actually expected real money to be involved. To his utter astonishment, his phone screen displays a balance exceeding 1 million yen. A coworker calls out. The man in the hard hat approaches, asking if he's feeling all right. Suddenly, Endo leaps from his chair and takes off running, leaving his colleague shouting behind him. Bolting through the streets, he tries to grasp if the game really paid out. If that promise of endless riches was real, he would dedicate his entire being to Prophecy Online. That virtual world was merciless. The Tower Guardians wiped players out countless times. Every defeat meant losing all character data. Inside the tower, there was a dungeon with random exits. During his journey, he faced Ultimate Attack's unblockable damage that transmitted real pain to his physical body. The fear of death was so visceral that many players just quit. Endo barely earned enough to survive, stuck in part-time jobs. To extend his playtime, he racked up debts, seeing no option but to push forward. He staked everything on the hope of that promised reward. Eventually, the admin message arrived, congratulating him on clearing the game. Kneeling on the floor of his room, the reality finally hit him. He had actually done it. Moments later, another notification pops up from the Prophecy Online admin. He opens it instantly. The message stated that because a player had cleared the game, services were being terminated. In disbelief, he questions what will happen to the rest of his reward. He starts yelling at his phone as it displays a final thank you message. Doubt lingers about whether the full prize will actually be paid, even as he tries to convince himself otherwise. He tried to calm down, rationalizing that the delay was due to the large sum involved. Giving up for the night, he decided to check again the next day. But since that initial deposit, no further funds had hit his account. By then, it was already too late. He woke to his phone vibrating, wondering what was going on so early. A message informed him that the test of ice had failed, Moscow was destroyed, and a new event, the test of Earth, had begun, targeting Japan. Utterly confused by the meaning, he sat stunned. Meanwhile, a giant news screen broadcasted the situation in Moscow live. Where the city once stood, only ruins remained. The Russian government announced there was no hope for survivors. To make matters worse, an unknown creature had emerged and appeared to be attacking what was left of the area. A news helicopter approached the devastation. The reporter warned that a similar disaster was imminent in Japan. The disaster bore a disturbing resemblance to an event in Prophecy Online. Back in the studio, anchors debated the footage's authenticity, one blaming a natural disaster. Suddenly, the field reporter realized the creature was targeting their helicopter, and the feed cut out abruptly. Receiving no response, the anchor desperately called for Hayase-san, trying to reconnect. That's when the veteran gamer realized this was no natural disaster. Faced with the unbelievable, he knew the game had become reality. He left his apartment, determined to understand what was happening. On the street, a woman interacted with a holographic interface identical to the one in the game. He stared at the screen displaying info on the main event, the Test of Earth. The admin's message claimed this experience would become an invaluable resource. As the only person who had successfully cleared Prophecy Online, he was the only one with the power to save the world. Opening his door again, he decided he would turn all that power into cold, hard cash. He used to wonder what would happen if Prophecy Online became real. Grinding spots had turned into battlefields. Ray was running toward the nearest dungeon. Amidst the chaos, people ran aimlessly. Public transport was dead. A man called out Ray's name. He asked why he was headed out after ignoring all the warnings. The young man recognized the guy. It was the loan shark. The debt collector said he was just on his way to Ray's place. He ordered him to turn around. Without hesitation, the loan shark flicked his cigarette butt right into Ray's face. About a year prior, the player had been inside the game, sitting by a campfire. A company was offering players a 200,000 yen interest-free loan. They would keep half the rewards. Thinking he'd only have to pay it back once he earned enough, Ray decided he had no choice. He took the loan. As soon as the money was gone, a new contract arrived. The interest rates were sky high. They claimed he hadn't passed the screening. Now he owed 50% interest in 10 days. To try and cover the debt, Ray sought out lower interest loans to get the cash. But every time he tried to make a payment, the group deliberately cut off contact. They let the interest rack up to force collections. Back in the present, the loan shark confronted Ray. He told him he needed to repay the money he'd borrowed. The player shot back, claiming they had tried to pay, but the lenders refused to take it. The collector called Ray pathetic. He said people who don't want to pay always make up excuses. Even so, he said it was fine. There was something else he needed from Ray. Curious, he inquired about him playing Prophecy Online. Ray confirmed that the current state of the world was exactly like that game. Without warning, the loan shark grabbed him by the collar. He demanded to know everything Ray knew. Ray told Takuo to get his hands off him. The debt collector asked who he thought he was talking to. Ray replied that he would offer just one piece of useful information. He activated the beginner skill, Novice Fist. A flurry of punches connected with the loan shark, slamming the man against the wall. Ray informed the collector that in this current world, his rank was superior. Without looking back, the gamer ran off, leaving the man behind. Inside a nearby car, a girl asked if that had been a Prophecy Online skill. The driver next to her commented that he hadn't expected to find an experienced player so soon. According to him, law and order would soon collapse, and the entire world would be rewritten. He concluded by saying that things were getting interesting. Sometime later, Ray arrived at a location called the Goat Sanctuary. He confirmed the dungeon was exactly the same as the one in Prophecy Online. He immediately noticed there were people there. He moved forward down the long, torch-lit corridor. Suddenly, the scent of blood hit the air. The corridor ahead was littered with the bodies of monsters. Further up, a group examined a fallen monster. They noticed the newcomer arrive. A hooded man turned to Ray. He asked if he was a Prophecy Online player too. Ray asked if their group had killed all those monsters. The hooded man confirmed it. He said they were fire lizards, high-level monsters that would have killed Ray instantly. Ray argued back. He claimed those monsters were actually the weakest ones in existence. Another guy walked up and invited Ray to become his subordinate, seeing as he came alone and had no friends. The deal was to hand over half his gold in exchange for protection. Ray refused. He said he preferred playing solo. He also stated that, first off, he didn't think they could defeat that dungeon's boss. The group leader turned to his companions. He suggested that as soon as they beat the boss, they should kill Ray too. Several players agreed. They said it was better to have fewer people with info on the game. The leader declared his decision final. Anyone who disobeyed would meet with an accidental death. Ray thought to himself that the local boss, the Burning Goat, wasn't a difficult enemy. But nobody could allow someone else to deal the final blow. A timer showed 5 minutes until the door opened. Ray realized it was almost time. The group positioned themselves to block his path. Ray asked what their problem was, and if they were trying to block his way. One of the players confirmed it and told Ray to just wait there. He could have wiped them all out in an instant, but decided to let it slide this time. The group headed up the stairs, determined to be the first to defeat the boss. Ray concluded it wouldn't be too late to act after they were slaughtered. The countdown reached the final 3 seconds. Right after, the great dungeon door finally began to open. Ray decided to see just how far that group could get. The leader noticed the boy in black hadn't come in with them. He thought it was convenient not having any nuisances around. One of the members wondered if Ray had figured out their plan to stage an accident. The leader reprimanded his teammate, telling him to stay focused. A man with a shield bragged that with his gear, the boss fight wouldn't be a problem. Suddenly, a gust of wind surprised the group. An immense pillar of fire erupted before them. The leader could barely believe what he was seeing. A flaming hoof hit the ground with force. The Burning Goat, boss of the dungeon, finally revealed itself to the group. The creature let out a powerful roar and flung all the members backward. The leader panicked, not understanding how it all ended up like this. A female member asked Light what they should do. He yelled that they needed to retreat for now, but they discovered the door wouldn't open. Light was shocked by the situation. Light ordered the man with the shield to act as bait and block the attacks. The shielder hesitated, but the leader simply screamed at him to obey. The Burning Goat prepared to attack the shield user. The guy raised his shield, ready for impact. The creature then smashed him with its hammer. The man and his gear were completely destroyed by the blow. The monster picked up the remaining shield from the floor and just crushed it. Light called it a coward and a monster. The Burning Goat was supposed to be a low-difficulty creature. Even a level 1 player could beat it with the right strategy. However, this was the updated model. It was based on the original Burning Goat that appeared in the war and was considered unbeatable. Light questioned why this world wasn't based on the newest version of the game. Then he remembered the other guy outside. He imagined that maybe he could do something. Light ran to the door. He yelled for the black-haired kid to get in there, even promising to split the reward. He pounded on the door, screaming for it to open. Suddenly, the group was hit and thrown across the room. Lying on the ground, Light lamented the monster's strength. He realized at this rate, everyone would be annihilated. Just then, Ray opened the door from the outside. He questioned all that big talk from earlier. The gamer smiled and asked if Light really had what it took to lead people. Light decided to use him as a distraction to escape. He yelled for everyone to get out, leaving the monster as Ray's problem. One of the girls fell to the floor and begged Light to stop. She insisted he couldn't do that while the leader backed away. With the door almost closed, Light screamed for them not to leave him inside. Right after the door smashed his arm and he screamed. The burning goat stared him down, calling him a noisy brat. The creature decided to end that screaming right now. It smashed Light against the door. The survivors wondered what to do. Ray said the answer was simple. As a sword appeared on the ground, he picked up the weapon. He commented that for a weakling, Light had a pretty good sword. The burning goat challenged him, asking if Ray wanted to die too. The creature attacked with its hammer, but Ray dodged the blow. He jumped over the monster, gaining an advantageous position. Upside down in midair, Ray asked what the problem was. He then advanced. With a single strike, he cut off both of the burning goat's horns. The two survivors watched the scene, completely shocked. Ray then turned to them. He offered to save them in exchange for 10 million. The girl tries to respond to the demand. Ray points his sword and sets the price at 10 million. He confirms he'll spare their lives if they pay the stipulated amount. The pair refuses, claiming that amount is impossible for them. Ray suggests they work off the debt if they want to stay alive. He imposes a condition: serve under his command and hand over 90% of all rewards. As a favor, he adds that he'll allow them to keep the remaining 10%. The pair revolts, remembering that Light only asked for 50%. Faced with their refusal, Ray turns away and says they have no other choice. Suddenly, a monster appears and accuses the humans of cutting off its horns. The creature prepares an attack, swearing they deserve to die 1,000 times over. The girl quickly conjures a barrier to block the imminent attack. Ray dodges by jumping. The man and the girl are knocked down by the force of the attack. Ray lands on his feet and questions how long her luck will last. Pressured, the man and the girl agree to obey and beg him to save them. With a smile, Ray simply declares the deal settled. Then, he turns to the monster and comments that it's been a while since he defeated it. The creature denies it, claiming no memory of ever losing to someone like Ray. The girl is confused. She explains that in the game, the burning goat was never defeated before being removed. A flashback reveals the game was never updated, showing Ray standing over the already defeated creature. The scene also reveals that the burning goat was defeated by him once, transforming into the smoking goat upon rebirth. Back in the present, Ray uses his sword to deflect an attack. The creature is surprised to see its attack deflected. The pair wonders who this man is who managed to deflect the blow with his sword. That last attack would have been instant death even for a veteran player. Ray states that when you know the trick, the attack is nothing. Then he dodges multiple high-speed blows. The monster questions why it can't hit him. Ray attacks the creature, explaining that its movement patterns are identical to the game. The pair watches in surprise as the monster is pushed back. They start cheering, encouraging Ray to defeat the creature. Ray gets irritated by the noise and tells the man to shut up. A quick dodge avoids a devastating blow that destroys the ground. The monster acknowledges his skill, but declares Ray won't get any farther. The young man is forcibly thrown against the wall. Cornered, he realizes he was lured into a trap. The creature prepares the final blow and asks for his last words. Ray simply tells it to die, stating the monster can't even hit him. So, the monster accepts the challenge and prepares to attack. The creature unleashes a powerful blast of fire from its mouth. The pair is startled by the heat and wonders what those flames are. The flames have the power to instantly incinerate even level 99 players. Furthermore, it's revealed to be an area of effect attack. That was the burning goat's last desperate resort when cornered. With a smile, Ray states there is no escape. Then he declares he was waiting for this moment and activates a beginner skill. Leg power is increased by 50%. Ray jumps high with a powerful boost. The all-consuming flame leaves the user completely defenseless. Besides, the creature's mouth isn't as strong as its bite. This means there's an opening to intervene. In a quick movement, Ray descends and uses his sword to force the monster's mouth shut. Even with the strength of a level 1 player, it's enough to keep it pressed down. Ray explains that once activated, the all-consuming flame cannot be stopped. If the flame isn't stopped, it will spread over the caster's own body. Ray jumps away from the creature and asks if it can withstand its own flames. The young man moves away as the monster is consumed by the fire. The monster disintegrates. A system notification pops up, announcing that the unique boss has been defeated. The duo can barely believe they're saved. The young man notices Ray took down the boss without a single scratch. Another notification appears. It declares Ray the first player in the world to defeat a unique boss. He receives the unique title, the First Executor. He realizes this system is different from the game he knew. The title boosts damage against bosses by 50%. Ray is surprised by such a powerful effect. Next, the system informs him that as a bonus, he can choose a subclass. Ray wonders about the subclass. It seems generous for the option to appear so early in the game. A confirmation window asks if he'd like to choose his subclass now. Stating there's only one choice for him, his hand moves to confirm the decision. A warning advises that the subclass cannot be changed, and Ray is pulled into a new environment. While floating, he finally declares his subclass choice, Soul Blacksmith. After the confirmation, he comments that he'll make a fortune with this surprising discovery. Ray looks at the two items received as rewards, a key and a dagger. The girl recognizes one item as the sewer key. It grants access to a hunting ground for easy leveling. The man remembers that Light had mentioned that key was his main goal. Ray explains the item isn't that rare, since the burning goat has a 100% drop rate for it. The duo is impressed by how casually he treats the item. They realize he's on another level. Ray holds the dagger and states that, unlike the key, this is actually a decent item. With a single movement of the dagger, he cuts a large rock in half. The duo is surprised by the ease with which the blade split the rock. Ray claims the dagger still isn't enough. It's time for his new skill to shine. For him, the subclass isn't just a secondary feature, it's his main class. Although most subclasses are useless, rare ones can have incredible skills. Soul Blacksmith is one of the best. It allows extracting soul fragments from anything to create and enhance items. This is the only subclass that offers a chance to beat the game. Ray activates Soul Vision. The Soul Blacksmith skill allows item awakening, but it requires an F-type mage soul fragment. He realizes the girl, a mage, is the source of the material he needs. To extract the fragment, he needs a contract. He regrets the 90% deal he made earlier. Even so, he drives the dagger into the ground, stating he found something useful. Ray turns and offers the key to the duo, asking if they want to use it to level up, but he presents a contract and imposes the condition that all items listed there will be his. The man accepts the key gratefully, believing they now have a chance to survive. Ray replies that there's no need to thank him, as their profit is also his, while the contract is finalized. A system notification confirms that the F-type mage soul fragment has been obtained. With the material in hand, Ray declares it's time to finish what he started and activates the Soul Blacksmith skill. He raises the dagger and orders it to awaken. Ray holds the enhanced weapon while the system announces the success of the awakening, which increased its power and unlocked a new skill. He tests the new skill, Soul Cut, leaving the confused duo in front of him. Next, he unleashes a powerful cut that throws the duo back. The attack pierces the dungeon ceiling and tears open the sky outside. The girl looks up, completely surprised. The man wonders how a human can have so much power. Ray just comments that this will do for now. He ponders the next step now that he has a weapon and minimum skills. Then he turns to the girl, who backs away. She prepares for the worst as Ray walks away, but the young man stops a short distance away, leaving her confused. Then he kneels beside the body of a fallen player. The girl watches and wonders if he's paying respects to the dead players. Ray just grabs the wallet on the ground, sees it's full, and says that will at least pay for the taxi. The duo concludes that this man might be even more dangerous than the monster they just defeated. Crows circle above the courtyard as Ray walks alone. He approaches a well in the center of the yard. At the bottom hides a dungeon. It's the perfect spot to grind for experience points. Goat dagger in hand, Ray plans to hog all the XP for himself. A coin flies straight at him. With a single strike, Ray slices it in two. Suddenly, 3 men arrive. The group's leader warns him that this territory is already claimed. Ray just asks who decided that. The man reminds him of the game's rule, first come, first served. He suggests a better hunting ground for a price, but the group refuses. Instead, they offer to let him stay if he pays up. Ray asks how much. The man proposes 50,000 yen an hour. Ray agrees, mentioning he just got some extra cash. He hands over the money for exactly 1 hour. Next, he heads down to a place known as the Wolf Cave. A distant sound echoes through the cavern, catching his attention. A creature leaps onto the ground in front of him. Suddenly, Ray finds himself surrounded by a wolf pack. These monsters are giant wolves, mid-level creatures that yield a good profit. He decides to save his strongest skill and prepares for combat. The wolves attack from all sides. Ray dodges the first attack with agility. Then he charges, cutting down several enemies in his path. After the clash, he observes the defeated wolves around him. He comments that's enough for now and grabs a drink. But one of the men attacks him from behind while he's distracted. Ray spins around just in time to block the blow with his dagger. He immediately counters with a swift upward cut. The strike hits the cave wall, forcing the man to retreat. The attacker recovers and comments that was close. Ray realizes his opponent is used to fighting. He accuses him of enjoying ambushes, attacking right after a battle against monsters. The man confirms with a smile. He loves these tactics. He explains he just waits for prey with good gear to show up. It makes the place an efficient hunting ground. Suddenly, the leader appears and remarks that Ray noticed the trap. He explains this spot is a meeting point for looters. The fact that they were alone was suspicious. The leader gets annoyed as Ray suggests they should have used a decoy group to fool him. But Ray reveals he actually figured it all out as soon as he saw their weapons. The bigger guy uses knuckle dusters that provide a reckless acceleration attack. The other one's sword uses high-frequency vibrations. A single hit would have killed him if he didn't know that. And finally, he mentions the leader's ring. Ray describes the ring as a troublesome piece of equipment. The leader apologizes and offers to settle the situation with money. Instead of paying, he throws a shower of coins onto the ground. The coins scatter across the cavern floor, surrounding Ray on all sides. The young man gets irritated by the waste, stating there's at least 10,000 yen there. The leader says his hand slipped and tells Ray to pick them up, but the player realizes the trap. It would force him to kneel to get the cash. Ray recognizes the coin explosion ring. It causes an explosion centered on a coin. He warns the group that if they try attacking someone stronger, they won't make it out alive. But the leader ignores him, reminding him they have the numbers advantage. Ray retorts that he doesn't care how many weaklings there are. They aren't worth a single yen. The leader gets annoyed by the answer. He points the ring at the ground and orders the coins to explode. A massive explosion consumes the entire area. He changes his mind about a quick death and orders his men to capture Ray. The man with the knuckle dusters moves in to attack. Ray dodges the punch. The swordsman warns that he's not very good at holding back. Then, Ray finds himself surrounded, blocking a blade while the other man unleashes a flurry of punches. With a quick movement, he pushes the swordsman and the fighter away. Ray declares the contract broken. He's taking his 50,000 yen back with interest. The leader accepts and says he'll pay the interest with his explosive coins. Ray raises his sword, surrounded by enemies on wasted ground. He declares the contract broken. He's taking his money back with interest. One opponent accepts the challenge. He'll pay the interest with explosive coins. He tosses a coin and yells, "Coin explosion!" The coins detonate right in front of Ray as he charges forward. An enemy dives in for an aerial attack. Ray blocks the strike at the last second. The impact shatters the opponent's blade. Ray immediately counters with a sweeping side slash. The enemy leader watches from a distance. He wonders if Ray's weapon is an epic tier item. Ray leaps into the air to counterattack, but the leader claims he expected that. He declares they can't lose as he unleashes a barrage of coins. Ray disappears in a massive explosion. He calls the opponent an idiot for scattering his coins. Another enemy rushes in, readying a rocket punch. He throws the punch with full force. Ray's sword flies into the air. The attacker celebrates, thinking he connected and Ray is dead. Nearby, his teammate whines, wondering how much it will cost to fix his own broken sword. The leader approaches the fallen weapon. He states that no matter how good the weapon is, it's useless in the hands of a common human. Suddenly, a soul imprisonment skill activates across the battlefield. Chains burst from the ground, binding all enemies. The two henchmen scream as the chains immobilize them. Their leader yells their names in desperation. Ray reappears. He explains he used the power of a soul blacksmith to inflict a fate worse than death. The leader turns and tries to attack with his sword. Ray steps on the blade, stopping the attack effortlessly. He stares him down, calling him slow. The other disagrees. The leader reveals a shower of coins around himself. He screams for Ray to be blown away, but Ray activates his soul imprisonment skill again. Chains completely wrap around the man's body. He panics, realizing his coin explosion isn't working. Ray explains that his skill seals enemy techniques. With their level difference, it's easy. Indignant, the opponent reveals he's level 7 and has been strengthening himself as fast as possible in this world. Calmly, Ray admits that for a beginner, he did pretty well. He then declares they are ready to negotiate, adding that he can extract their soul fragments. An info screen appears over Adrian. The condition to get his fragment: feed him until full. Screens appear over Ayan and Hauki. Their conditions: find a sister and terrify him completely. Ray realizes there's one condition he can fulfill immediately. Hauki, suspended in the air, cries out in pain and begs them not to kill him. Ray replies that's a silly thing to say. He needs the man alive. Confused, the leader asks what he means. Ray mentions his eyes, blood, and organs. He reveals there are people all over the world willing to buy them. He asks if 50,000 yen interest is too high. The henchmen despair, asking if he'd really do that. But Ray says he wouldn't. It's not worth the trouble, and he's just a part-timer. He advises them to figure out how to earn more money than selling organs if they want to survive. The leader shouts he can't think of anything so suddenly. He'll do anything. He just begs for his life. The man is completely terrified. A notification confirms the condition to extract the soul fragment has been met. Item obtained. The chains vanish, dropping the three to the ground. They recover, coughing. Ray throws papers and pens at them, ordering them to sign. The men read the contract. It demands 90% of their earnings and total obedience. Ray asks if they have any complaints. All three vehemently deny it. No complaints. Ray holds the signed contracts. He warns them the operating table will become their grave if they dare rebel. Then he orders them to take him to their backer. Surprised, the leader asks how Ray knows. Ray explains their gear isn't something weaklings could get alone. Someone is behind this. The man begs him not to force the issue. He'll be killed if word leaks that he sided with someone else. Ray asks if going against the boss is scarier than an organ transplant without anesthesia. Trembling, the leader says no. One henchman yells he wants neither option and tries to run. Ray simply asks if he thinks he can escape. New chains emerge, binding the runner as his companions watch. Terrified, the leader finally agrees to guide him. Ray announces their weapons and money are confiscated. He reflects that security in this world is the worst. The game world was slightly better. A smile appears on his face. No one can harm him anymore. A status screen reveals Ray is level 36, holding the secondary class of Soul Blacksmith. The scene is a vast circus tent under a starry sky. Inside, equipment like trapezes and flaming hoops are set for the show. A lone man stands center stage in a spotlight. He collapses wounded, mouth bleeding. Behind bars, others watch. One laments his luck. A man in a vest and bow tie approaches, criticizing the injured man for bungling the job. Bloodied, the wounded man asks if they pity the boss. A prisoner yells to stop, saying he'll die. Roku replies he doesn't care. They're hindering the boss. A voice from behind a curtain questions that statement. The clown-faced boss appears. Roku calls out to him. He approaches and asks Roku if his training is finished yet. The boss kneels by the injured man. He says this went too far. Broken bones leave lasting damage. The guild is short-staffed. They can't afford to break even useless men. Roku apologizes. The wounded man thanks the boss, promising to do the job right next time. Standing, the boss prepares his whip. He strikes violently. He shouts that this is how you train animals, tearing flesh without breaking bones. He insults the man, saying not even animal protection groups would help someone so slow. A voice announces their return. The newcomers enter the ring. Surprised, the boss comments on their speed. Hoki approaches to report, explaining the mission is difficult in his current state. The boss grabs him, demanding the borrowed ring, claiming it's worth more than Huki's life. Huki apologizes. A strong monster took the ring. The boss strikes him hard with the whip handle. He yells at the idiots for failing when they're already short-staffed. Hoki's companions fear the boss's power harassment. The boss points at Roku, saying there's only one job for scum like him. He orders Johnny brought out. A huge white beast appears behind Huki. The white tiger roars fiercely at him. Fallen on the ground, Huki questions the boss, claiming he has always been loyal to his orders. The man just tells Joni it's time for dinner. The creature advances, jaws open to devour him. The tiger leaps across the ring with Huki in its mouth as Ray appears in the arena. He lands a powerful kick on the beast's head. The boss screams Joni's name. Ray warns he must stop the tiger from killing his valuable income source. The man rushes to his tiger, asking if it's okay. Huki and his men gather around Ray, complaining he took too long. Ray just asks if their hideout has anything valuable. Suddenly, the boss tries to whip Ray. Ray cuts him down like nothing. The clown-faced man asks who the hell he is. Holding his dagger, Ray introduces himself as their new employer. Indignant, Roku asks if they forgot the boss's favor. Huki yells he owes nothing. He only followed out of fear, and Ray is much scarier. Ray turns toward the other prisoners. He then offers the caged men a contract for protection from that clown. The prisoners ask if they can really escape that hell. With a smile, Ray promises they can. The condition is they hand over half their earnings in exchange for information on how to clear the game. Huki and his men offer to give 90%. Ray explains it's a surcharge for trying to kill him. The boss enrages, accusing Ray of hurting his Joni and now trying to steal his subordinates. He declares he'll kill the 4 of them and send them straight to hell. The white tiger then questions since when such barbaric behavior is allowed in Japan. The boss states it is allowed as long as he has this. He displays a guild operation permit in the name of Andrei Lukich Kochenko. Ray asks if that is a guild operation permit. Andrei explains the Japanese government panicked after the incident in Moscow, granting guild masters authority above the law. He asserts that now not even the police can interfere, and he can kill Ray without consequences. He claims that in Japan, power is everything. Ray then realizes that if he became a guild master, he could also conduct shady business like that. Andrei calls him a fool and explains that to become a guild master, one needs to be recognized as a rank B player or higher. He says it doesn't matter since Ray is going to die there anyway. Andrei then fires his gun repeatedly in his direction. Ray activates a skill utilizing the soul fragment he just acquired. A soul barrier appears around him, blocking all the projectiles. Andrei continues to fire, questioning the existence of a skill barrier and finding it problematic. He recalls that Russia used nuclear missiles in Moscow's Trial of Ice, but still couldn't overcome it. Ray then asks if he ever questioned why so many players don't use guns to conquer dungeons. Andrei is forcefully pushed against the barrier and screams for Ray not to approach. He tries to break the barrier with the butt of his gun, then he punches the barrier with both hands. Andrei continues pushing against the barrier with all his might. Ray takes a step forward and tells him to remember this. Andrei screams while the barrier begins to contract and crush him. The barrier closes completely around him. Ray declares that skills outperform all weapons, and one shouldn't think it's possible to win with toys. The prisoners comment that even the boss could do nothing against him, and Ray asks for a final confirmation on the contract. He still offers as a bonus the chance for them to do whatever they want with the clown. The men in the cage shout that they have many resentments and will sign the contract if they can get revenge. Andrei accuses him of doing that without a license and asserts the police won't remain silent. But Ray just questions who cares, reminding that it was Andrei who yelled, "Power is everything." The cage opens and the men are finally released. Then a crowd of furious men surrounds Andre and Roku. Ray watches the scene, thinking he's gathered many income sources and will earn easy money with them. He decides it's better to wait for more impatient people to appear for judgment. A timer shows about a month remaining, and Ray considers the time perfect. The scene shifts to the imposing building of the Player Association headquarters. Ray arrives at the rank certification exam hall. While walking through the crowd, he hears a nearby conversation. Two men comment that rank B players or higher are recruited by famous guilds with high salaries. Another warns that only 9 people in Japan are rank A, but Ray declares he will be the 10th person. Someone calls him an idiot and tells him to get real as Ray walks away. The world of Prophecy Online has already become reality for 2 weeks. Initially, many players tried to earn the 100 million yen reward offered by the Japanese government, but the result was disastrous for all of them. It was then that the Player Association made membership mandatory, preventing non-members from challenging the tests. A man observes the situation, thinking there are many interests involved and that he also wants a piece. Suddenly, Ray notices something approaching. A traffic sign crashes into the ground right in front of him, scattering debris everywhere. The people around wonder what happened and where the sign fell from. A voice yells the name of Endo Ray, accusing him for what happened before. Ray appears on top of a building and asks if the guy thinks he can escape his debt collection. He lands and Ray asks if the man is also there to take the rank certification test. Ray reminds him he was defeated with a single punch last time and that trying the test would be a waste of life. But the collector asserts he isn't the same anymore and that now he possesses the strongest profession, Lancer. Ray mocks the Lancer profession, stating it's a choice for amateurs who know nothing. He explains the class is strong initially, but becomes a burden later, and the collector, irritated, asks what Ray's profession is. With a smile, Ray reveals his profession is that of a simple beginner. The adversary laughs, saying that is the same as being unemployed, but Ray asserts he isn't lying. Determined to end it, the collector wields the sign like a spear and prepares to use his profession's power. He advances with a powerful spear attack towards Ray. Ray simply dodges by moving his head to the side. The attacker is shocked to realize the blow was avoided. Ray stares at him and says he didn't want trouble before the exam, but that he was attacked first. Then he grabs the man and throws him high into the air with a single movement. While the Lancer remains fallen, Ray walks away and declares that it was just self-defense. Inside the luxurious association building, Ray approaches the service counter. The receptionist informs that the fee for the rank certification exam is 8,000 yen. He sits on a bench to wait for his turn after paying the fee. Then a woman approaches and thanks him for waiting. She calls him by name and announces his rank certification exam will start now. They arrive at a room where a huge crystal is displayed. Ray asks if the exam content is as expected, and if he just needs to place his hand on the crystal. Placing his hand on the crystal, he releases great energy. The woman accompanying him is surprised by the immediate reaction. An immense discharge of energy explodes from the crystal, filling the entire room. She becomes completely shocked, not understanding the intensity of that reaction. Back in her room, the woman stands up from her desk and calls for Endo Ray. She informs that, as a result of the test, his ability was judged as equivalent to rank A. The woman explains that players can change jobs to various professions. She mentions advanced classes like Swordmaster, Magic Master, and Archbishop. Then she offers total support for his profession change if he wishes, but Ray simply refuses the offer, explaining the profession he wants hasn't been unlocked yet. The woman asks what kind of profession that would be, but Ray replies he has no intention of telling her. He asserts that if it's just that type of item, he will gather them himself. Then he asks if that is all she has to say. The woman questions if his decision wouldn't be problematic. Ray asks why it would be. She explains that although his power surpasses any rank A player, he will be classified as rank E if he refuses to change professions. She continues saying rank E is essentially for beginners, and that Ray would face restrictions like not being able to create a guild. Ray replies the government loves creating useless rules, and he can simply raise someone's level to make them the guild master. He reveals that as far as he knows, only one profession can complete the final test of Prophecy Online, and for that reason he has no intention of changing. He confirms that, even as rank E, he will still receive the reward of 100 million yen, so there is no problem. The woman understands and informs that, unfortunately, his registration will be issued as rank E. Ray then leaves the association building. Outside, several people with signs try to recruit new players for their guilds. He observes that competition for promising rookies seems fierce. Two women approach him, calling him handsome guy and inviting him to their guild, which recruits starting from rank D. Ray just replies he is rank E. The recruiters lament it's a shame. Ray reflects rank E is treated like a pariah, but he doesn't care about following others. Then he notices someone approaching in the middle of the crowd. A man in a suit with a briefcase walks towards him. The subject approaches and greets him, confirming he is Endo Ray. Then he introduces himself formally. Ray receives a business card from Genesis Wings in the name of Saito Shinji. The surrounding crowd recognizes him as Fyodor. from the strongest guild. Saito explains Fyodor is just his old nickname from game times. Rei wonders what Fyodor wants with him, having waited for Genesis Wings. Suddenly, Takuo appears and confronts him, asking if Rei was looking for him. He boasts about being rank B and says he won't sell himself cheap, while Rei watches his return. Rei wonders how Takuo got rank B with that weakness, and if he threatened the examiner. Saito asks who he is, treating Takuo like a mere troublemaker. Takuo grabs him by the wrist, asking if he wants to see how strong he is. Takuo advances to attack Saito with a punch. With a quick movement, Saito immobilizes him. He says he has no time to waste with him, as the time of destruction approaches. Rei walks away, irritated, and tells Takuo not to come crying to him later. At a cafe, Saito apologizes for what happened, but Rei says not to worry, as that guy is also a nuisance to him. Rei asks what his business is, stating it has nothing to do with a rank E like him. Saito explains the reason Rei is rank E is simply because he refused to change professions. Rei comments that the player association is very loose with personal information. Saito reveals his guild cooperates with the association, and that, with imminent destruction, they can't afford to be selective. He offers Rei the same amount his guild paid for his information if he joins Genesis Wings. Rei is shocked seeing the value of 10 million yen on the paper. He admits not long ago he would have accepted right away and still desires that money. Even so, he refuses the proposal, stating he doesn't intend to join a guild. Saito then asks what Rei thinks of the information they gathered. He explains his guild is creating the world's best wiki in cooperation with government agencies and would give Rei top-level authority. Rei asks if that information source possesses data on players who already cleared Prophecy Online. Saito replies absolutely not, as no one in this world has ever managed to clear the game. Hearing this, Rei simply says he understands and refuses the proposal. The sudden refusal surprises Saito. He hands over a document and tells him to contact him if he changes his mind, offering to pay the bill. Saito observes Rei and wonders why he yielded so easily. He pays the bill at the cashier, thinking it wasn't out of concern for the guild's image. His instincts warned him as he was afraid of that man. Suddenly, Rei touches him from behind, scaring him. The young man drops the bill money onto the counter. Rei tells Saito to contact him if he needs help, as he might accept depending on the price. Saito picks up the money and thanks him awkwardly. As Rei walks away, Saito wonders who that man is. The scene begins at Genesis Wings headquarters. On the top floor, a man enters the guildmaster's office. Saito Shinji announces he is back. Sitting at her desk, Tsukino thanks him for the hard work and asks how it went with the strongest rookie he mentioned. Fyodor replies Rei is a true monster. He reveals he was the first player who scared him just by talking to him. The woman asks who seemed stronger between him and the rookie. Fyodor simply hesitates to answer. She holds a player's file and comments his hesitation already means something. The man then apologizes to Tsukino-san. But Tsukino tells Fyodor not to apologize, as his job is to transmit the information he saw without hiding anything. She joins her hands on the desk and adds she is at the bottom among the 10 transcendents. Tsukino Yamagata, Guildmaster of Genesis Wings, states it's no surprise people stronger than her exist. The 10 Transcendents are the best players who received a new body after being defeated in a prophecy power test, and in this world where the game became reality, they all possess immense power. Tsukino asserts their existence can influence the balance of power between nations, concluding the invitation failed since Fyodor returned alone. Fyodor confirms the invitation failed, as Rei doesn't seem interested in Genesis Wings' information. She reflects that if Rei were really one of the 10 Transcendents, he would already have all the money and fame he wanted. But thinking logically, she states none of the 10 Transcendents would remain a rookie, as there would be no merit in it. She raises the possibility a common player used shady items that increase status in exchange for severe side effects. Tsukino then tells Fyodor that even so, she highly values his discerning eye. After all, if their reading is correct, Rei would be the strongest in the world, and the only one whose name is still unknown among the Transcendents. Fyodor asks if she is referring to number 1. It is explained the US used electronic espionage networks to locate 9 of them, but data on number 1 is corrupted. Tsukino asserts the corrupted data allegation is a US lie, and there are rumors they are hiding the last person. Fyodor replies he didn't believe that rumor until seeing him, but now he's skeptical. He concludes that very likely Rei is indeed the last one. With her hand on the desk, Tsukino says if he states that, chances are high they are right. She then orders Fyodor to warn guild members that from now on, any hostile actions against Rei are strictly prohibited. She compares him to an unknown nuclear bomb that can move in any direction and states they need to handle him with care. Fyodor agrees with the order. The scene then changes to another building in the city. A few weeks later, the money-making gang's base of operations is shown in a rented office. Someone calls for Rei-san. In the new office, a person asks if that is a good place for the TV, while another thanks him for the hard work. A man approaches Ray and opens a briefcase full of money, announcing he collected the day's tribute. Ray takes the money, says it looks good, and asks how the group's strengthening is going, to which the man replies everything is progressing as instructed. He explains leveling with the underground waterway key is going well, yielding him $1 million a day. Even rookies are earning over $100,000 a day. The man admits he honestly didn't expect to earn so much and has no way to thank Ray enough. Ray, counting the money, reminds he said he would make everyone earn, for if they win, he also profits. He explains, after all, the tribute is for information fees. The man admits the tribute is high, but if it were just the daily share, it wouldn't be more than 1/10 of this. He realizes the level of information Ray possesses is on a completely different scale. Ray comments the sensation is good, so the man informs him the trial of Earth will be in 10 days and the prize increased to 400 million. Ray says he would like to wait a little longer. Then a live report from the location starts broadcasting on the office television. The reporter informs the trial of Earth is underway, and if not completed in 10 days, Japan will face destruction. In the studio, anchors comment the situation still seems hopeless, but the anchor interrupts with breaking news, announcing the Japanese government increased the reward to 1 billion yen. One of the gang members comments the government ran out of options and hopes a capable player appears. Ray warns that if they delay more, foreign guilds might start interfering. He decides maybe it's time to solve the problem. While putting on a coat, he states he'll handle it, and a companion asks if he's going alone. Ray confirms yes, as he cannot put the money-making gang in danger. The gang members look at Ray-san with admiration. Ray then declares that 1 billion is all his money. The other man simply replies he understands. Night falls over the Trial of Earth mountain. A crowd of players streams toward the dungeon entrance. A man is on his phone as Ray approaches the group. He stops right in front of them. Fyodor greets him. "Glad you made it." Ray cuts to the chase. "I have no intention of cooperating." Fyodor sighs. "A shame. I brought a very lucrative proposal." He offers 100 million yen to transport cargo. Ray asks, "Transport what?" Fyodor gestures to rows of stacked backpacks. "Deliver one of these to a guild member inside." Ray squats to inspect them. "What's in it?" "Food," Fyodor replies. Opening a pack, Ray reveals various supplies. He pulls out a chocolate bar. Fyodor smiles. "Our guild master's favorite. Their camp is at the 5th floor entrance. The clearing took too long and they're out of food." Ray eyes him. 100 million. Is there a catch? Others would jump at that price. Fyodor admits the truth. They aren't being generous, they're desperate. 39 groups tried this transport mission. All 39 were wiped out. Are the game and reality different here? Ray asks. The first 4 floors should be a breeze. Fyodor reacts sharply. The mechanics seem the same, he explains, yet almost no one makes it to the 5th floor. The few who did are starved for supplies. Fyodor adds bitterly, only you and our guildmaster could call those floors a breeze. Ray grabs a backpack, questioning their lack of manpower, but notes he won't complain if the money is good. Shouldering the pack, he asks, any bonus for fast delivery? Fyodor hesitates, checking with superiors. He reports back, an extra 50 million yen for delivery within 1 day. Worth asking, Ray says. Then he declares, it won't take a day. I'll deliver it in an hour. Trial of Earth, 3rd floor. A giant monster attacks a pair of players. Run! The man yells to his partner. What about you? She cries. Thanks for everything. Now go! She screams his name. Michael! Suddenly Ray blurs past, slicing through creatures. Move it, he orders. The monster's attack is blocked inches from the male player. The woman calls him their savior. The fallen man gasps his thanks. They watch as Ray vanishes into the distance, wondering if he's already gone. Ray pushes onward through the 5th floor. Checking his watch, he notes the 150 million yen job was profitable. It took less than an hour. He looks ahead. A man intercepts him, confused about the commotion on the 5th floor, then asks, Are you Ray-san? Dropping the backpack, Ray confirms, Genesis Wings? The man nods. Where's the person in charge? Fyodor sent this food. I want my 150 million yen. The man identifies himself as the charge. Payment was transferred the moment you left. Ray checks his phone. A bank notification shows a 150 million deposit from Genesis Wings. He confirms receipt and gives a nod of thanks. The leader announces the food's arrival to cheers. We're saved, one player cries. I'll tell the front lines. Ray surveys the grim scene. Terrible sight. The leader agrees somberly. We've lost too many people. Suddenly the ground quakes. Players scatter, desperate not to be caught. Another group arrives and the leader asks what happened. A player screams. An explosion rocks the distance. A massive swarm of insects bursts from the smoke. Suddenly, a woman appears amidst the fire. She charges, attacking the monsters with her blade. Ray recognizes the technique, Hellfire Slash. There are people here who can fight back after all. She approaches. A pleasure to meet you, Ray. She thanks him profusely for accepting the transport mission. Then she introduces herself. I am Tsukino Yamagata, Guildmaster of Genesis Wings. Ray stares at her. Tsukino walks toward him. Then she stumbles. Ray catches her. She apologizes, explaining she hasn't eaten since the day before yesterday. Ray mentions he heard they were having supply issues. The other players grab the food. The camp is shown as the players gather. Inside a tent, Rei asks Tsukino if she's the strongest one there. She confirms it. Eating a chocolate bar, Tsukino reveals a secret. Even though she's the lowest rank, she's technically part of the 10 Exceeds. Rei questions the name. He thinks it's cheesy. Tsukino slams the table. She explains she didn't choose it. That's just what they called the top 10 strongest players back in the early days of Pro On. Rei asks about the top 10 and who determined that strength. Tsukino reveals it was determined by a US intelligence agency investigation, and all of them were identified, except for the number 1 player. She explains the top 10 received a reward from the game's operators. She asks if anything arrived for Rei. Rei asks how much they got. Tsukino clarifies it depended on the country, but in Japan, it was 1 million yen. He remembers. It was exactly that million that got him addicted to the game and almost ruined his life. But if he is the number 1 player, maybe it's better to stay silent. Wouldn't want to complicate things. Rei questions if it was only 1 million. That's pocket change compared to dungeon rewards. Tsukino agrees if you're just looking at the money, but she emphasizes that the game knowledge was far more valuable. She admits that knowledge didn't work on the local bosses. Rei wonders if even the top 10 players couldn't clear the Earth test. Tsukino replies that they are still just human. Without their game levels and equipment, clearing the dungeon in this state seems almost impossible. Hand on the table, Rei simply says he understands. He stands up. Mission accomplished. He tells them to let him know if anything else comes up. He'll accept depending on the reward. Then he turns to leave. He plans to defeat the 5th floor boss and grab the 1 billion yen reward. Tsukino yells for him to wait. She asks if he would cooperate to defeat that floor's boss, but the other guild members object. They claim they'll defeat the boss alone. They can't trust someone with dubious intentions. Tsukino reminds everyone she forbade hostile actions against Rei, but they still protest. She says she understands how they feel, but Tsukino doesn't want to lose any more comrades. In a flashback, she attacks a monster with her Hellfire Slash. A player informs Tsukino-san that the front lines have collapsed. They can't advance any further. She orders everyone to retreat. Those who can must help the wounded. Tsukino argues that retreating now prevents more sacrifices. A guild member tells Tsukino-san to leave it to him, but she screams for him to fall back. The creature's attack pierces his shield, and immediately after, the young man's back. Tsukino states that the more of them survive, the better. She declares that if Rei can clear this test, she wants to bet on that possibility. The other guild members listen to her decision. Tsukino declares that clearing the Earth test and bringing peace to Japan would be the best tribute to the comrades who gave their lives. Rei turns around. He warns that he doesn't want dead weight. He claims he can easily handle the boss alone. Tsukino observes his confidence. It increases the probability that Rei is the last of the 10 Exceeds. She wonders how he will fight and decides she'll find out in battle. Outside, Tsukino gets ready. She reminds Rei he said he'd accept work depending on the reward. She proposes they join forces in the boss battle. Rei comments he's starting to smell easy money. Tsukino realizes he's not interested in the reward for killing the boss. She understands they are a burden. She suggests he think of the reward as compensation for the trouble they've caused. Hearing the word compensation, Rei demands 10 million yen per person. He stipulates the first half be paid up front. Whatever happens in the battle stays between them. Rei adds there are no guarantees of survival. The reward will be split among the survivors. Tsukino smiles. She says it looks like they have a deal, surprising one of the members. She announces to everyone that they will join Rei in the fight and orders them to prepare. Rei reflects that with 10 million per person, he can make a fortune. The young man turns to face what's coming. Then a swarm of insectoid monsters appears before them. A guild member questions the number of enemies. While Rei offers to clear them for a fee, Tsukino asserts she will handle it. She declares she won't let anyone interrupt her meal. Tsukino unleashes her infernal cyclone upon the creatures. The guild members cheer for Tsukino-san. Rei comments that it wasn't bad at all. She eats something quickly. Sword in hand, she calls for Rei-san to follow. Rei confirms the down payment. He wonders how she finished so many snacks in just 10 minutes. He announces that now it's time to face Japan's first challenge. The group prepares to advance and finish the mission. Rei charges in, taking on the monsters with just his dagger. A guild member remarks to Tsukino that Rei seems a bit full of himself. He expected flashy skills. Instead, he notes that Rei is relying solely on physical attacks. Tsukino tells him to look at the fallen monsters. She points out the lack of external wounds. Rei is killing them with a single strike. The man admits Rei is skilled, surprisingly so. Tsukino notes his movements are unnervingly precise. He has no need for grand techniques. The group finally reaches the entrance to the 5th floor boss room. One of Rei's companions comments that it's been a while since they've seen this door. A young woman voices a bad feeling. A guild member asks if she's alright. Tsukino simply tells them to move. Facing the entrance, she declares they will avenge their fallen comrades. She warns everyone she's going all out right from the start. They acknowledge the plan. With a battle cry, Tsukino leads the charge against the boss. The group faces a giant spider hanging from a web on the cave ceiling. It is the Vermilion Spider, the 5th floor boss of the Earth Trial. Tsukino, along with 2 other members, launches a combined attack on the monster. Their skills result in a massive explosion, striking the boss dead on. One companion asks if they got it. Rei simply answers, no. Tsukino looks up in surprise. The spider attacks with 1 leg. The impact throws the players back. Without a scratch on it, the boss begins firing webbing. Tsukino realizes their attacks aren't working, even though insect-type monsters should be weak to fire. Rei explains that while the attribute is correct, their attack power is insufficient. The vermilion spider readies another web attack. Tsukino is hit by a jet. She warns everyone to beware the sticky webbing. She continues dodging, warning them not to get caught. Escaping alone will be difficult. The monster then begins flooding the area with its webs. Rei quickly pulls his 2 companions out of the attack's path. He lands, dropping the 2 onto the ground. Stuck in the webbing, one of them apologizes to Rei. Rei says there's no need for thanks. If one of them dies, his reward is cut by 10 million. He tells them not to push it, they're being a nuisance. He suggests charging them $1 million for every rescue from now on. While the others continue fighting, Rei watches the battle from a distance. He activates his soul vision and looks at the spider. His ability reveals something. He can extract a soul fragment from Tsukino if he gives her the biggest surprise of her life. Deciding to try something flashier, he stomps firmly on the ground. With a burst of speed, he launches himself high into the cave, soaring above the spider. A weapon materializes in his hand mid-air. He dives toward the boss, delivering a vertical blow to its leg. The spider reacts, attacking him with another leg. The impact is enormous. Tsukino and the companions recover from the shock. She calls out for Rei. They watch the creature regenerate, believing it's all over. Not even Rei could have survived that. Leg regenerated, the monster questions if they thought they could erase it with such a pitiful power level. But Rei uses a soul fragment to strengthen his arm. He catches the spider's attack with a single hand. The guild members are stunned. Not only did he survive, he stopped the blow single-handedly. Then, he spins the monster's massive body in the air by its leg. With a sharp movement, he slams the creature forcefully into the ground. The spider lands on its back, exposing its underbelly. Rei reveals the monster's weak point is the abdomen. Seizing the opening, he advances and strikes the exposed spot with his blade. The guild celebrates the victory, but Rei asks them what they're misunderstanding. He issues a short warning. This is just the beginning. The boss's body begins to transform. The spider's carcass contorts, taking on a new form. A brilliant light erupts from the transformation. One guild member complains about the blinding glare. The monster finally reveals its new form. Sharp blades have replaced its legs. One player observes that the creature regenerated, and that's not all. The spider towers over the group, now much larger than before. Rei explains that this is the vermilion spider's second form. It is far more aggressive. A member laments that they could barely handle its first form. Rei simply states it's because they are weak, then casts his soul web. He uses the web to propel himself toward the creature. The spiritual threads wrap around the monster's body. The spider is completely immobilized by the technique. Following up, he activates the soul incineration matrix, using several soul fragments. Sensing the danger, Tsukino orders everyone back. Rei commands the monster to burn. Flames consume it. The creature is engulfed in intense fire. Tsukino realizes the destructive power is dozens of times greater than her own. A player asks if they got it. Rei remains silent amidst the flames, which soon begin to fade. A massive explosion tears across the landscape. A lone figure watches from afar. A man tells Tsukino it's over. She replies that she's just glad everyone is safe. Suddenly, a massive jewel formation rises from the ground in front of the group. The players murmur excitedly. Enemies drop rare items sometimes, but they've never seen a gem this huge. Rei pushes past everyone, telling them to move. Someone asks if he plans to take it all for himself. The giant jewel begins to tremble and shift in the dust. Rei stares intensely, dead serious. Tsukino reacts to the sudden movement. It's revealed. This is the boss's final form, the vermilion spider. Defeating it would solve all his financial problems. The creature rises. A man yells that it's not over, warning everyone to stay sharp. Tsukino immediately readies her weapon. Suddenly, the spider moves once, throwing all allies backward. The creature unleashes a wide-range strike, moving much faster than before. The attack sweeps the area, hitting several players. Rei warns Tsukino not to get distracted and to run with the others. She screams his name, seeing a rock falling toward him. Tsukino asks what Rei intended to do. He tells her not to ask the obvious before charging forward. Dodging attacks, he announces he's going to crush the creature and claim the reward. Tsukino notices he dodges the limbs easily. Rei explains that the final form attacks non-stop until the opponent dies. He orders her to hurry up and get out of there. He slides along one of the giant limbs. Dodging is manageable, he asserts, but defeating it is the problem. He raises his dagger to strike the monster. The blade connects but can't pierce the crystalline shell. Surprised that not even the goat dagger can break through, he starts thinking of a plan. Rei jumps high into the air, announcing he'll attack the weak point. Mid-air, he steels himself and activates his soul reserve. The other men question what he's doing, saying he's just asking to be attacked. Smiling, Ray simply says, "Here it comes." The creature's limb lunges and pierces his chest. The impact jolts him violently. Everyone present, including Tsukino, watches in disbelief. Tsukino screams Ray's name, seeing him suspended in the air, impaled by the creature's limbs. Smiling, Ray states that he finally caught it. The crystal creature reacts instinctively. The dagger in his hand begins to glow, and Ray yells, "Soul Rampage!" Immediately after, he unleashes a flurry of strikes, severing the limbs holding him. The attacks smash squarely into the monster's main body. The creature begins to shatter mid-air. Ray falls amidst the crystal fragments. The monster's remains explode upon hitting the ground. He lands in the center of the crater. Lying down, he comments that even knowing it would hurt, he needs to heal so he doesn't die. A system window reports that Soul Reserve has 3.12 seconds remaining, and several healing spells are cast. Other players gather around him and begin restoring his health. Sitting up now, Ray thanks them for the healing, saying he didn't have to use his own skills. Smiling, he comments that healers aren't so bad after all. Tsukino then asks if he planned to take those hits from the very beginning. Ray turns to the group and reminds everyone that this is Prophecy Online. With a grin, he claims that taking damage to the point of near death is a basic technique. Tsukino and another man react to this statement. She retorts that this is reality, but Ray simply agrees. He explains that in combat, the same strategy worked in reality just as well as in the game. Tsukino views him as an immense figure and calls him crazy. A system notification informs him that for giving Tsukino the biggest surprise of her life, a swordsman's soul fragment has been obtained. Ray looks at the item and says he got lucky. He had another method in mind to surprise her. New system messages announce the completion of the Earth test, and that 5 minutes remain before the test disappears. The group celebrates the monster's defeat, cheering that Ray did it. One man declares that Japan is saved and he is very happy. Ray interrupts, telling them to decide on the reward before time runs out, while Tsukino stands still. He states the promised reward was entirely his, but asks them to receive it and transfer it to his account. Tsukino turns and confirms that basically he's passing the credit to them. The news that the rookie Ray defeated the Vermilion Spider of the Earth test will be widely spread. Tsukino explains it's better to report it as a victory for a large guild to increase the reward for the next test. Ray needs to ensure his information doesn't leak so it doesn't hinder his financial gains. Tsukino asks if money is the only reason. As guildmaster, she thanks him, but finds it strange to take the credit. So Ray tells them to just say they hired him. She agrees to the condition and publicly announces they cleared the Earth test, saying she's counting on him. The name of the subjugation group will be Genesis Wings, and the system confirms the registration. 2 men hold the items and assert that with this, no information about Genesis Wings will leak. Ray holds a large crystal and comments that it would be like announcing they stole someone else's credit, while the system warns that the test is about to disappear. A helicopter soars over mountains at sunrise. A reporter announces the earthquake's epicenter appears to be the Earth test site. She urges viewers to look, reporting that the location is crumbling and players are evacuating. Inside the collapsing cave, players yell that it was too close. Suddenly, everyone floats upward, encased in a glowing circle. The system announces Earth test completed, all players transferring to the surface. Participants lift out of the crater toward the sky. Back on the surface, they celebrate seeing sunlight again. Ray watches in silence. A massive monument materializes before them. Tsukino remarks that it truly seems to be over. An inscription on the structure announces that the group Wings of Genesis will be recorded as the clearers. The reporter shouts that the test has vanished and rushes toward the site. A swarm of journalists approaches the players. Tsukino notes the gathering press. She asks Ray if he's certain about hiding the truth. She turns to address him but realizes he's already gone. A man approaches and hands her a note from Ray. It reads, "Contact me if there's a profitable deal." She smiles. Reporters swarm her, asking if she belongs to Wings of Genesis and who delivered the final blow. Her companion tries to calm them, but Tsukino assures him it's fine. She steps up to speak to the press. Facing the microphones, she addresses the people of Japan, stating she is pleased to deliver the news. Smiling, Tsukino announces that the Earth test was completed by her team, the Wings of Genesis. The reporters react with enthusiasm. On a live broadcast, she adds that this achievement wasn't theirs alone. As Ray walks through a forest, her voiceover explains that nothing would have been possible without external support. A car waits on the road. Ray notes his ride has arrived. Standing before the monument, he surveys the landscape as Tsukino's speech continues. Tsukino and her guild members bow gratefully before the cameras. A reporter comments on her humility, calling her the leader of the strongest guild. Tsukino smiles confidently. Inside the car, Ray observes that Tsukino seems to be handling it well. He remarks that the spotlight can be profitable, but he has no desire to be hounded by the media. He considers that creating a separate public face might be the best way to manage the situation. Ray mentions he's starving and asks to stop somewhere. The car speeds down the highway. breaking news announces that the nationwide Earth test has been cleared by the Wings of Genesis. In a boardroom, a report states this national-level clearance is only the second in history. A group of people watches the broadcast gravely. The scene shifts to a modern office building, housing the Gold Farm Player Guild. In his office, Ray checks his phone and announces a fresh deposit of 1 billion yen. Two men overhear and complain that they haven't received a single yen. They gripe about the incomprehensible work Ray makes them do. Gathered around a table, they wonder what exactly they are building, but one advises against overthinking it. At the desk labeled Clerk Ray, he is the supreme authority commanding absolute obedience. Ray asks Lumi if the guild setup is complete. She approaches and confirms the registration was successful. Lumi, now guild master of Gold Farm, asks if he's sure she should be the leader. Her operating permit shows that only players ranked B or higher can establish a guild. As an E-rank player, Ray admits it was impossible for him, so he chose her. Thanks to his intelligence, the entire squad has risen to rank B or higher. Even among them, aptitude varies, though the men celebrate their results. Lumi is the least suited for money-making, but her sharpness and people skills make her the perfect public face for the guild. Ray shows her a tablet, noting that she's already trending online. Several articles highlight the truth behind the high-ranking guild, featuring interviews with Guildmaster Lumi. Ray comments that making him a mere clerk was the right move, since everyone else is rank B. Lumi asks why he created the guild when he could earn so much alone. Ray explains that the main goal is to receive commissions for completing tests. Beyond large-scale ones, there are smaller tests targeting specific cities or prefectures. Only officially state-recognized guilds can accept these challenges. Lumi wonders if she's gotten smarter, while Huki admits he didn't know that. Lumi approaches Ray with a tablet, listing low-difficulty tests with high rewards. Ray refuses and hands her a document, telling her to accept that test first. Lumi asks what it is. She reads that the reward is only 5 million yen, and questions if there aren't better offers for that difficulty rating. Huki whispers, wondering if Ray doesn't care about the money, but Aion warns him to be careful or he'll get killed. Lumi deduces that if Ray chose this test, there must be something more valuable than the reward. He confirms. Smiling, Ray instructs them to ensure they don't miss the chance to accept it. Lumi locks eyes with him and confirms she understands. A car speeds along a winding road through a forest. On the phone, Rumi updates Ray. The task was successfully accepted. The reward is just over 5 million yen. Good work, Ray replies. He lets her know they'll reach the location in about 30 minutes. Suddenly, another call comes through. It's Yuji on the line. He reports that he was monitoring the test site, but suspicious individuals have entered. Ray asks how many. 5 people. He asks if Yuji was spotted. Wasting no time, Ray ends the call. He orders Yuji to leave the rest to him and get out of the area immediately. Ray stares out the window, pondering the unauthorized entry. He notes that these don't seem like ordinary people. He decides it's time to hide his face. He begins creating an enigmatic mask. A system window pops up, asking him to select materials for item generation. He decides to use the soul fragment obtained from Tsukino. However, the automatic generation shows a very low success rate. Instead, he opts for the manual process. The system warns that the manual success rate is undefined, and failure could cause damage. Ray confirms anyway. The transition to the soul world begins. He drops into a digital space. To harmonize the soul, he floats toward a large alignment circle. The system informs him the success rate is extremely low. The time limit is 60 minutes. Time passes rapidly as he struggles to align the pieces. Finally, he achieves alignment with only 5 seconds remaining. Time runs out. The structure compresses into a single object. With the soul fully harmonized, the system confirms 100% success. Ray examines the object in his hands. The system confirms the enigmatic mask has been successfully created. Ray turns to the driver and asks to be let out right there. He exits the car and watches the vehicle speed away down the road. Alone, he places the mask over his face. Wearing the mask, he assumes a different appearance for the mission. Now transformed, he walks toward a large mansion. Inside, he finds monster carcasses. He notices the smell of burning is still fresh. He heads up the stairs, concluding that someone was here before him. He approaches an open secret passage in a bookshelf. Seeing the hidden door ajar, he realizes they are after the secret test. Tests are categorized by their scope. Large-scale ones target nations, while small-scale ones target villages. Small-scale tests are generally easier with smaller rewards, but there are exceptions. Those exceptions are the hidden tests. They are randomly generated and possess higher difficulty, but rare items can be obtained. Descending a spiral staircase, he concludes that players with significant information must be down here. He then encounters a group of 5 hooded figures. A white-haired man identifies him as someone from the Gold Farm and says they've been waiting for him. Ray just stares at him in silence. When Ray questions the Gold Farm reference, the man realizes his mistake. Dismissing it, the hooded figure claims he can perceive everything just by looking at him. Ray warns them that he has no intention of completing the test for their benefit. The man replies that won't be necessary because they have already completed it. He reveals a golden box. He asks if this is what Ray came for, the evolution box. Ray realizes they arrived first. He asks what would happen if he was there for the box. The man tosses the box to him. Ray catches it firmly in his hands. With a smile, the man says he's giving the box as a sign of goodwill. In exchange, he floats up and asks Ray to accept a task for them. The mission is to prevent the completion of a certain small-scale test, regardless of the means used. He suggests that for a player capable of finding this place, eliminating the test group would be easy. Ray understands the purpose behind the request. He identifies the group as a shadow guild. He claims they are planning the same thing they did in Argentina. About 2 weeks ago, the city of Mendoza failed a test and fell into ruin. Companies listed in Mendoza were hit by massive short selling, almost as if someone had predicted the collapse. Still holding the box, Ray comments that a shadow guild was the culprit, and now they are targeting Japan. The man leaves the motive to Ray's imagination and asks if he accepts the offer. Ray answers no. He explains that while tempting, it would be more profitable for him to destroy a city himself and profit from the short selling. The man laments this decision. He asks for the box back and states they will charge interest for the trouble. Then he reveals the interest is Ray's life. Holding up a syringe, he explains that Ray's options are to cooperate or die. Ray draws his sword and asks if they really think they can win. The man replies that under normal circumstances it wouldn't be possible. But having just completed the hidden test, he warns Ray not to underestimate them. He then injects the substance from the syringe into his own neck. His followers do the same as he declares that player abilities are useless against the Shadow Guild. The men started writhing, their bodies twisting into new forms. The leader laughed as the transformation took hold. Ray stood silent, just watching. He identified the items on the floor, doping syringes. Seeing no visible physical changes in them, he admitted he didn't recognize that specific item. Glancing at the box, he grasped the situation and decided to just leave with it. The transformed group charged him. One hand clenched a small detonator. Suddenly, the box Ray was holding detonated. The leader and his followers cackled at the explosion. He stalked through the lingering smoke, stating that players were easy to fool because they always assumed their opponent would play along. He explained that the plan was to divert attention away from their bodies and toward the box. In the midst of the smoke, he lamented not securing a pawn, but told them to make good use of the relics. Suddenly he turned, noticing something behind him. The leader stared at the crater, realizing there was no body, just the box sitting in the center. His followers were abruptly hit by a surprise attack. Engulfed in flames, he pointed to the side, screaming that the enemy was over there. Ray's doppelganger attacked the men amidst the fire, and one of them cried out that even Ridge-san had been caught in it. The attacker ordered him to burn to death, but the disguised Ray remained unharmed within the flames. Someone approached the leader from behind, commenting that it hadn't been bad judgment. The real Ray emerged, pointing a dagger at him, and said he was wrong. Using the soul-binding ability, Ray trapped the leader in chains. The man squirmed, questioning how Ray could still move after that explosion. Ray asked if he thought he didn't know the weight of the evolution box. He held up the real box, revealing he knew from the start it contained explosives. The chain leader asked why he took it if he already knew. Smiling, Ray stated that they underestimated high-level players. He then made a call, warning that he would cover the cost of his torn clothes with everything they had in their wallets. The leader asked if he was calling the police, but Ray said this was much more important. On the other end of the line, Lumi answered, asking if he was finished yet. He instructed her to locate the area with the highest concentration of short selling in Japan, as it might be the Shadow Guild's next target. She understood the order and confirmed they would protect the area. The chained leader commented that he was playing the hero. Ray denied it, asking what he was talking about. He then explained that cheap stocks sold by the guild could be bought for enormous profit after the test was concluded. The leader reacted, asking if he really intended to directly oppose the Shadow Guild. Ray asserted that for money, he would gladly make them his enemies. He then warned that they would also have to cooperate, but one of the men refused. Ray opened the box and asked Lumi if the re-education course was ready. Over the phone, she replied that she wasn't sure if the guillotine was usable. He then informed her that he had secured a suitable guinea pig and would deliver him later. The system announced that the evolution box had evolved a soul fragment. The scene shifts to the front of a modern art museum with an active portal. Ray confirmed over the phone that the Shadow Guild's target was definitely there. On the other end, Lumi informed him that Ridge and the others had confessed everything honestly while hanging in the back of the room. The captured men squirmed upside down. She then asked if he would really be okay alone, but he guaranteed there was no problem. Amidst the crowd in the square, he asked Lumi to monitor his stock movements. A man named Takehisa announced to everyone that the group to conquer the museum test was about to depart. The leader of the protection group invited everyone wishing to participate to gather.
Ray observed the large number of people who had joined the call.
He estimated there were probably 300 people gathered there. Takahisa turned to the crowd, thanking everyone for uniting to protect the city. Ray noted that such a large number of people for a request without a reward made it very easy for a spy to infiltrate. He then scanned the crowd to locate the spy before the test began. Takahisa instructed everyone to start and to call loudly for help if strong enemies appeared. Ray noticed the lack of strategy, but saw it as an opportunity to act freely. As people entered the portal, he located the spy and planned an ambush. He then confirmed that the Shadow Guild had exactly 107 people participating, everyone except him accounting for 106. Ray revealed that out of the 107 participants, 106 were Shadow Guild spies, excluding himself. Then a man pointed forward, asking everyone to proceed with caution. The group entered an enormous art museum with statues and paintings everywhere. Ray approached a statue, commenting that everything there looked expensive. Immediately, he was cornered by a group of men in a hallway. One of them held a spray can and smiled at Ray. Suddenly, an explosion launched two men through the air. Ray found himself surrounded by various enemies amidst the chaos. He plowed ahead, knocking down multiple adversaries at once. The blonde man called them undisciplined dogs for attacking him with so much power. A man ran down the hallway, asking what was happening. He found Ray with the fallen men and heard that he had merely returned the attack. The newcomer advanced with a dagger, screaming for Ray to die. Ray caught the blade between his fingers. The aggressor was astonished to realize he couldn't advance. Ray threw him over his shoulder with a single movement. He observed the broken blade and said it was foolish to use a weapon that wasn't a game item. Then he addressed the others, stating he knew they were Shadow Guild subordinates, so they didn't need to hide. Takahisa agreed, saying that since Ray understood the situation, tricks were unnecessary. A young woman asked about the Shadow Guild, as she thought the mission was to protect the location from an environmental organization. Ray confirmed, but revealed that environmental organization was merely a subordinate of the Shadow Guild. Takahisa opened his arms and invited him to join them. He explained their job was to protect the test, not kill him, so avoiding a fight would be better for everyone. Takahisa offered a daily salary of 100,000 yen if Ray joined them. The others reacted indignantly, complaining about only receiving 30,000. The group discussed how the Shadow Guild could pay so well, and that Ray could have accepted sooner. But Ray simply refused the offer. Takahisa lamented and stated that, according to the plan, Ray would have to die. He offered a reward of 100,000 yen to the first person to hit him with a traditional blow. One of the men incited the group to work together and kill him. Everyone advanced in a coordinated attack against Ray. He remained calm facing the onslaught. In an instant, Ray moved and knocked down several opponents at once. Takahisa ran toward him, screaming for him to go to hell. Ray hit him in the face with a knee strike. Then, he placed his hand on his back and trapped him with soul binding. Takahisa, immobilized, was struck in the back of the neck. Ray dusted off his hands, stating that should solve it. He observed the two survivors cowering, begging for their lives to be spared. On the phone, he stated he would accept that as a gift from the Shadow Guild. Ray informed Rumi that he had secured a great harvest of 100 new recruits for the Cash Cow army. On the other end of the line, Rumi Sato asked if it was 100 people for the re-education course, since the instructors didn't have that capacity. She then clarified that, at the very least, the rebel leader would need to undergo re-education. A sword flew in Ray's direction. The collision caused a violent explosion. Ray dodged, leaping backward. He commented that the masked man had finally appeared. The man in the mask asked when he realized. Ray replied it was from the beginning, as the fallen enemies were too weak and clearly served as bait. He explained the masked man was the only one there with a different presence, and hiding his power wouldn't work against him. The opponent acknowledged Ray understood everything, and therefore found no openings. But the masked man questioned if Ray could withstand his next attack. He descended with a powerful blow which Ray blocked. The two exchanged a rapid sequence of attacks. The impact of the blades created a shockwave down the hallway. The masked man was surprised to see Ray keeping up with his movements using a dagger, realizing he had gotten stronger. Ray confirmed he was stronger than when they were still in the game. Then, landing a blow, he cut off part of the opponent's mask. Ray saw the exposed face and recognized his opponent. He confirmed it really was him, the first person from his time in Pro On he'd met in that world. Ray identified him as Yuto. Yuto stated he was happy to see him again, Ray, but that he never wanted a reunion like this. Then he declared he needed to kill him. Ray questioned if Yuto really intended to kill him. He removed his own mask and asked if the other really thought he could do that. Yuto activated the dual blade ability and advanced. Ray stated he had no choice but to fight and activated super acceleration. Yuto moved at impressive speed, impossible to follow with the naked eye. Ray tried to block, but the blows were too fast. He continued defending while commenting on Yuto's absurd speed. Then he activated Soul Eye. His analysis revealed Yuto's status and how much longer the acceleration would last. Ray blocked another blow and asked if it was almost over. Their blades crossed in a scorching clash. Ray then found an opening and kicked Yuto hard. The impact hurled Yuto far away. Approaching, Ray commented that, despite the good speed, Yuto's attacks didn't have enough strength to kill him. He activated soul binding and trapped Yuto with spiritual chains. Yuto despaired at not being able to move, as that ability shouldn't work with such a level difference. Ray stated the difference between them was overwhelming. He lifted him into the air but recognized him as an exceptional player. Ray then invited him to leave the Shadow Guild and use his abilities to earn money alongside him. Yuto just replied that he couldn't. Ray asked the reason, but he refused to explain. Then Ray threatened to reinforce the soul binding. Yuto screamed that he really couldn't talk, because if he did, that person would. Ray asked who that person was and then demanded to know where Hisashi was. He quickly deduced that Hisashi was being held hostage. Yuto admitted that, as expected, Ray understood everything. Ray realized there was more behind this and threw him against the floor. It is explained that Prophecy Online was a game famous for its extreme difficulty, keeping players away from high-level dungeons. In this scenario, having comrades capable of fighting together on the front lines was rare. Yuto and his younger brother Hisashi were exactly those comrades. Ray became strong enough to face bosses alone, but over time, the difference in skills separated them, although they still talked via messages. He never imagined that after so much silence, they would meet again like this. Ray then asked directly where Hisashi was. Yuto replied that he didn't know, as they never revealed the location to him. He knelt and implored Ray to use his soul blacksmith sub-profession to find his brother. Ray confirmed he had the ability, but reminded him this wasn't a game anymore. He asserted that in the real world, he only moved for money. Yuto then offered everything he had in his wallet. He bowed until touching the floor and begged Ray to save his brother. Ray asked if Yuto had something of his brother's for the search. Yuto handed over Hisashi's cap. Then, Ray activated Soul Search, using the cap to track Hisashi Maeda. The search failed, and a message appeared stating the target was not found because he was already dead. Yuto went into shock upon hearing the result. The young man processed the information that his brother had died. The image of the killer appeared. Raven, the Hiller. With a clenched fist, Yuto called him a bastard. Ray asked if he knew the man in the image, and Yuto confirmed yes, as it was Raven who had held Hisashi hostage. He swore he would kill him. Yuto grabbed Ray by the arms and begged for help, offering to work for him for as long as necessary. He asked Ray to help him kill Raven. Ray admitted he was also irritated as he considered Hisashi a younger brother. Yuto felt a glimmer of hope, but Ray ordered him not to jump to conclusions. He walked away and stated he had no time for battles that didn't pay. Yuto tried to call him back. At that moment, Ray's cell phone vibrated. Tsukino sent a message asking if it was true he fought against the Shadow Guild at the museum. Ray looked at the phone, wondering where that information came from. She then revealed she received a request from the government to eliminate the Shadow Guild headquarters for 1 billion yen. Ray reacted upon discovering such a request existed. Tsukino explained she knew about the order because it was an unofficial requisition sent to Wings of Genesis. He asked if there was no problem leaking it, but she replied she only disclosed it because it was him. Tsukino added that the Shadow Guild headquarters possessed over 10 billion yen in assets that could be seized. Ray then turned his gaze to Yuto and asked if Raven was at the Shadow Guild headquarters. Yuto confirmed that Raven was the head of the Japanese branch and rarely left the main base. Smiling, Ray said he changed his mind. He gave a thumbs up and stated he would help Yuto get his revenge. It was announced that their group, Gold Farm, would also participate in the request. Ray walked calmly down the street. Then, he received a message from Tsukino, informing him that the police had located the Shadow Guild headquarters and were investigating the site. He confirmed if the address was the 12th floor of the LM building. On the other side, Tsukino was surprised he already knew, as they had just received the information from the government. Ray replied he was doing his own investigation and asked if she needed anything. Tsukino asked him to help with the operation, as the police wouldn't be able to handle the Shadow Guild. Ray asked what the reward was. The offer was 100,000 yen for each captured guild member and 100,000 yen for each protected police officer. Tsukino guaranteed she would negotiate with the government, and if they refused, Wings of Genesis would cover the payment. Ray accepted the deal without hesitation. He turned to Yuto and informed him the police had also found the Shadow Guild base. Yuto got excited and said to finish it quickly. Ray stopped him, explaining that for the Shadow Guild, Yuto was still dead and it was better to keep it that way for now. Yuto agreed and said he would wait. Before walking away, he asked Ray to be careful, as the place could be full of traps. Under the sun, the imposing Shadow Guild building rose in the distance. Ray approached the area cordoned off by the police. An officer blocked the way, explaining the building was interdicted due to a supposed gas leak. Ray revealed he was sent by Wings of Genesis to help with the investigation. The policeman apologized and led him inside the barrier. Once in an operations room, the officer announced the arrival of reinforcements sent by the guild. The superior, irritated, questioned the presence of more people interfering in his jurisdiction. He glared at Ray and told him not to get in the way just because he came on higher orders. Then, he turned to the team and ordered the invasion to begin. Ray advised him against doing that. Immediately after, a massive explosion rocked one of the building's upper floors. Everyone looked up as shrapnel and debris began to plummet. Ray activated Soul Thread and launched himself upward. The threads extended into the sky, forming a large net that intercepted the rubble. An officer on the ground commented that it was close. Ray asserted he could also save the men inside. He dove toward the building just as another explosion blew out the wall. Landing forcefully on the destroyed floor, he observed fallen bodies of police officers. Coldly, he commented that, as expected, the place was empty. Then he saw a policeman moving. He pulled the victim carefully and told him not to die, reminding himself that this was worth 100,000 yen per head. Using his threads, he gathered all the wounded safely. He descended along with the group of police officers, and the men on the lower level asked if everyone was okay. Ray stated his work there was finished and walked away, while one of the men thanked him. Yuto met his colleague outside and commented that it finished quickly. Curious, he asked how it went, and Ray explained the Shadow Guild had already fled, as they knew about the police movements. Then the friend questioned him if he had any idea where other bases might be. Ray replied that was the only place he knew. Yuto explained he threw away all items loaned by the Shadow Guild, but clues might have remained at the museum. Ray stopped him, explaining he already limited the hideout options to avoid his own location being discovered. He stated that, with the police in motion, it would be difficult for the guild to secure an office or warehouse. The identities of the culprits must be clear through surveillance camera images. Yuto realized they would need a place without cameras, easy to guard and discreet. So he suggested an abandoned dungeon with few resources, and Ray confirmed his guild, Gold Farm, was already investigating it. The young man got confused and asked what Gold Farm was. Ray simply replied it was his guild. Then he informed Yuto that he was now a compulsory member and needed to start contributing. Yuto asked if the other members wouldn't join the fight, but heard they wouldn't. Ray explained their schedule was full, and he could call them at any time, however, that would decrease profits. A message from the guild appeared informing that, out of 36 dungeons, the Castle of Carnage was the only closed type with respawn conditions. Since there was no address, a map appeared showing the location in the mountains. Ray observed the Castle of Carnage, concluding it would be a convenient base if they could control the respawn points. Despite the difficulty, the rewards and experience were terrible, making the place a perfect hideout. Then he asked if that special request mentioned earlier was ready. Yuto was surprised that Ray had waited for that and prepared something, but received only a confirmation. He presented a large white car, stating it could handle even the toughest mountain roads. Once inside the vehicle, Ray ordered him to drive as fast as possible and promised to pay any speeding ticket. Yuto stepped deep on the accelerator. The car shot off at high speed, jumping off the city ramp. The car's navigation system indicated to go straight. Seeing the traffic clear, the driver warned his companion it was time to go, and that he could leave it to him. Ray asked him to drive safely, but the young man replied not to worry because he possessed an excellent license. The car sped down the mountain road. They continued descending the hill rapidly. While Ray complained seriously about the driving, the driver just laughed. Suddenly, the vehicle sped directly off the cliff. Yuto declared that was a great thrill. The car landed forcefully on the ground amidst wreckage. Yuto celebrated that they stopped with the tires down, while Ray just commented on the so-called safe driving. Yuto justified himself saying an enemy would be less likely to see them descending the cliff, and since they had a good car, they should maximize its capabilities. Outside, both observed a castle in the distance through the trees. Ray reminded the driver he forgot luggage. Yuto complained that, after driving, he now needed to carry a heavy suitcase and asked what was inside it. Ray replied they were weapons, as they needed to be prepared to fight a large group. A sign named the place Castle of Carnage. The two hid among the trees, watching the guards at the castle entrance. One of the guards complained about boredom and stated no one would appear there. The companion mentioned they had permission to deal with anyone who approached. Hidden, Ray observed this was a den of worms. He warned Yuto that he recognized those men from the last base, confirming they were right about the location. Then he asked about the place's security scheme. Yuto explained the previous base was disguised and had no guards, but this place was different. The other bridges were destroyed and a barrier was erected over the walls, leaving only the gate as an entrance. Ray concluded they were concentrating firepower at the narrow entrance. This meant that, while controlling that gate, they could completely block any intruder. Yuto alerted not to lower their guard, as at the last base there were at least 30 people. Next he asked if the enemies were strong, and Ray replied the henchmen weren't much. But as far as he knew, the Shadow Guild had 3 people as strong or stronger than him, named Jack, Clokey, and Raven. Yuto might have stated average players wouldn't stand a chance against them. Ray smiled, finding it amusing that there were 3 opponents as strong as Yuto. Yuto commented the partner's confidence was reassuring. Ray suggested sealing the base so no one escaped, since there was a reward of 1 million per head. Yuto questioned if he was doing this just for the money, and Rei asked if he needed another reason. He considered that for the total reward, they could risk letting some escape and simply invade. Rei asked if this Raven guy was quick to flee, and Yuto reacted with surprise. Yuto agreed with the containment strategy and declared not a single enemy would escape. For the blockade, they would need reinforcements from Wings of Genesis, but contacting Tsukino might leak the information. Meanwhile, one of the men confirmed they just needed to contain the enemies until Wings of Genesis arrived. Yuto Maeda demonstrated uncertainty and questioned if it would be just the two of them. Rei guaranteed with a smile that the two of them were more than enough. A message from Tsukino informed that the enemy base was located and the blockade started, asking to send only trustworthy members. Rei warned that the moment he sent the message, they would attack the guards at the entrance to initiate the blockade, and Yuto agreed. The countdown to the attack began. At the final moment, the message was sent. Yuto activated his super acceleration ability. He advanced in a trail of energy toward the gate. The guards were hit simultaneously, and one of them questioned the sound he heard. Yuto passed the targets in a quick movement. He neutralized the last guard at the entrance. Rei commented on Yuto's speed, even with the luggage on his back, but Yuto stated that wouldn't slow him down. Rei prepared to initiate the preparations. He threw the briefcase to the ground, which opened and scattered various devices. After everything was positioned, he confirmed he was ready. Rei said now they just needed to wait for the people inside to come out. A security camera on the roof of the building was activated. A group of men ran out from the interior with orders to kill the invaders, and Rei commented they were coming straight for the reward. He then positioned himself, saying it was time to gather the money. Rei activated his coin explosion ability, which hit the group of enemies full on. He commented that, as expected, it was better to eliminate the weakest ones at once. One of the survivors in the smoke alerted his companion to be careful with the next attack. Rei appeared and attacked him, asking if that was what he called being careful. He wondered if he had already defeated 100 people, considering this more lucrative than some judgments. Yuto warned he was almost finishing too, but suddenly stopped. An enemy with claws leapt toward Rei, while Yuto yelled a warning with his name. Yuto intercepted the attack and cut the enemy in half. Rei asked if the partner was hiding some ability, and Yuto confirmed yes. He explained he wouldn't reveal all his tricks in front of a surveillance camera. He also asked not to say his name as someone could lip read. Rei believed they had provoked them enough. He prepared to destroy the camera, questioning if he should do it because it was in the way. He threw his weapon and destroyed the surveillance camera. In a meeting room, a group watched the broadcast cut off at the exact moment of the attack. The Shadow Guild executive Raven announced they had arrived. A woman informed that one of the invaders was the traitor Mouse, Maeda Yuto, but the other's identity was unknown. She added that the search in the nation's database brought no results. Raven reflected that Yuto must have discovered his brother's death and that his family always interfered. In a flashback, someone called for Raven in a building during the night. Hisashi Maeda entered the office to ask questions about the next mission. Raven turned and asked if the job shouldn't have been easy. Hisashi, Yuto's younger brother, replied the issue wasn't difficulty, but the reason for the assassination. He explained the client claimed to be a rich person with a grudge, but he couldn't believe it was true. Raven questioned him if the information was accurate and asked if it was a lie. He stated killing and getting paid was all that mattered, while Hisashi asked if the superiors planned to destroy Wings of Genesis. Raven commented the lad had some interesting ideas. Hisashi insisted the target was a friend from the game, a gentle healer who wouldn't hold a grudge against anyone. Hisashi stated there was no reason to kill his friend, and the only explanation was that the goal was to crush Wings of Genesis. Healers were explained as easy and rare targets, and their influence was significant when they left an organization. Raven questioned what the benefit would be in killing such a weak target, and asserted the Shadow Guild wasn't idle. Hisashi then realized their plan was to prevent the completion of the trials. Currently, Japan's trials forces depended heavily on Wings of Genesis. If the guild were destroyed, the Shadow Guild could profit from the trials failure, interrupting progress as they wished. Raven called him smart, but said his formulation was incorrect. Then he suggested it would be faster to eliminate an entire nation. This becomes possible if Wings of Genesis disappears, provided they manage to activate another national trial. Hisashi backed away horrified, while Raven stated that was none of his business. The lad's life would end there today. As a shadow advanced along the floor, Raven trapped him with the Shadow Bind ability. The shadows wrapped around him and lifted him into the air. Hisashi encouraged the aggressor to kill him, because then his brother Yuto would be free. He revealed he was held hostage to control Yuto's actions, since he was too strong to be controlled by force. Raven corrected the statement, asking if he really thought he would lose to someone like Mouse. Hisashi insisted his brother couldn't be controlled the way Raven wished. Raven then questioned why he was prevented from contacting Yuto. He revealed that even if Hisashi died, he could simply keep it a secret. Then he advanced and pierced Hisashi's chest with his spear. The impact of the blow threw the boy's body against the wall. Raven lamented that if Hisashi hadn't noticed unnecessary things, he could have kept him alive in captivity. Back in the meeting room, one of the members commented that was why he had suggested cutting off arms and legs to immobilize him. Chloe, a Shadow Guild member, added that way he could have used him as his toy. Another member explained to Raven that due to the special case involved, they couldn't risk any leaks. Chloe dreamed that, with the plan's success, Japan would disappear, and he could live peacefully at a resort. Jack interrupted him, saying he was getting carried away, which irritated the older man. The young guild member commented Chloe would get tired of a resort in a day, and that it suited his hobbies and toy collection better. Chloe told the brat to shut up, but a voice ordered them to stop arguing. Another member offered Jack a promotion to HQ if he consumed an entire nation, but he refused, preferring to be on the front lines. Chloe held a sword and stated killing people was more fun and better for health. Raven heard that was very much like him, and then asked how the men downstairs were doing. A woman informed they sent disposable soldiers for the attack, but all were being annihilated. She explained it was because of Mouse, as the soldiers couldn't handle him, so Raven warned he would intervene. He grabbed a weapon from a wall rack and called Chloe and Jack to go along. Chloe questioned if all that effort was really necessary for just 2 rats. Raven warned him not to underestimate Mouse, stating a cornered rat would bite a cat. And since they couldn't accurately appraise the other man's strength, he needed to act. Raven then leapt into the air with his weapon in hand. He declared they must crush the enemies with overwhelming power, transforming them into the dew of his spear. The floor was covered with defeated enemies. Ray commented that was exhausting and wondered how many adversaries still remained. Yuto replied he wasn't sure, but believed they had already defeated more than half, and because it was money, he didn't care that there were still more. Turning around, he noticed a new opponent arriving in the distance. Ray asked what happened, but Yuto just said the enemy had arrived. Raven's figure revealed itself, and Yuto pronounced his name. Raven greeted him, saying it had been a while and that he came knowing everything. Yuto confirmed and declared he came to avenge Hisashi. He tried to activate his super acceleration ability, but it didn't work. A system notification informed the ability was on cooldown for over 3 hours. Seeing the situation, Ray advanced with his weapon in an arc, but Yuto leapt toward Raven ready for combat. Ray interrupted his advance and observed his companion's attack. Raven prepared his spear for the counterattack. The executive attacked with a wide slash, releasing a large impact from above. Yuto defended the blow with his 2 swords, but the force dragged him backward. He then perceived other presences and wondered who they were. 2 new enemies appeared on the battlefield, one on the ground and another on the wall. Jack called them idiots for coming just to die and called for Chloe. Meanwhile, Chloe commented it was foolish to throw life away for a dead person. Yuto recognized Jack and Chloe, realizing their appearance meant the situation was serious. Ray questioned who those 2 were and suggested exploding them with coins for being in the way. But Yuto ignored the newcomers and demanded an answer from Raven, asking why Hisashi had to die. Raven replied it wasn't for a great reason, just that the rat tried to bite his master and was put down. Yuto questioned him furiously if he killed his brother just for having challenged him. Raven then said a useless experimental animal goes to the incinerator, asking if the rule was hard to understand. Yuto gripped his sword hilt tightly and cursed him. Raven warned him not to lose focus or he would die, while Chloe advanced toward Ray. Chloe launched an area attack that hit multiple targets at once. Ray ordered Yuto to go, guaranteeing he would handle the other 2 enemies. Yuto then turned again to face his main target. He advanced, screaming for Raven to prepare, but the opponent called him a fool. Raven questioned if he could beat him without his ability, and raised an immense ice fortress. Yuto stopped before the sudden wall. He declared for Raven not to underestimate him while channeling power into his swords. Then he launched a direct attack against the barrier. He activated his ability, Overheat Explosion. The attack destroyed the ice fortress, and Yuto advanced through the debris. He believed he had caught his opponent, but Raven just smiled. Ray, however, was surprised by Chloe's blade at his neck. Yuto changed targets and launched a combined attack of slash and coin explosion on the other enemies. The explosion hit the area where Jack and Chloe were. The impact of his own technique threw him backward, and Ray asked what he was doing. Ray warned Chloe to stay alert, questioning what would have happened if he hadn't interfered. Yuto faced an immense ice pillar created by Raven. He recognized that, if not for Ray, he would already be dead. Ray reminded him vengeance became impossible if he died, and that saving his life cost 100,000 yen. Then he guaranteed Yuto didn't need to worry, as he would make him win. Raven questioned Ray, saying he didn't recognize him and asking if he was the one who interfered in the mansion and museum trials. Ray accused him of making baseless accusations while realizing they knew about Gold Farm, but not about his identity. Raven didn't understand why he would risk so much to side with Mouse. Smiling, Ray replied, the reason was obvious as he was doing it for money. Raven questioned if he would make the Shadow Guild an enemy just for that reason. Ray advanced to attack, stating there was nothing more important in the world than money. He added that Raven's head was worth 100,000 yen, and that this also guaranteed Yuto would work for him for free. Ray declared that just as Raven killed Hisashi for the Shadow Guild's profit, now it was his turn to die for Ray's profit. Next, he prepared to activate his ability, Soul Limit Break. A system notification appeared for Yuto, informing that Ray was attempting to activate the ability on him and warning about grave consequences. Yuto accepted the ability activation. Soul Limit Break was activated and all his skill cooldown times were reset. A system notification informed Yuto he received temporary power from player Ray. Ray simply told him to act. Yuto exploded in a burst of speed on the ground. He advanced toward Raven, activating his super acceleration once again. A system notification announced that Soul Limit Break was activated and all skill cooldown times were reset. Yuto recognized the power flowing through his body as Ray's blessing. With this new strength, he believed he could win. He exploded in a burst of speed and shot off the ground. Once again, he activated his super acceleration and advanced toward Raven, but Raven just called him pathetic. A barrier of ice spikes surged from the ground. Yuto was forced to interrupt his advance before the obstacle. Raven reminded him that the person who best knew his movements was him. He pointed out that, although speed and dual blades were impressive, Yuto possessed 3 weaknesses. The first was short range. While several ice spears advanced against the attacker, Yuto dodged the attacks, realizing the spear's range rivaled his speed. Raven announced the second weakness, the lack of power. His weapon swung in a wide, powerful arc. Yuto prepared his defense for the imminent impact. Raven pointed out the last weakness, the time limit of Yuto's ability, believing victory would be his if he could resist. Yuto admitted he couldn't defeat Raven with only his own strength, but still possessed a chance. Raven questioned Mouse's plan, stating he could see through all his movements, regardless of tricks. But Yuto also knew the opponent's abilities well, and stated there was only one he needed to worry about. The recoil reverse ability nullifies an attack's force and returns it to the opponent, and with the power of Ray's blessing, the recoil would be even greater. Then he advanced to attack Raven before the ability could be activated. Raven was taken by surprise and questioned what power that was. Yuto simply replied, "Who knows?" Ray observed that the blessing allowed Yuto to fight on equal footing against Raven, but Raven called him naive and prepared his spear for a counterattack. Recoil reverse was activated, and Yuto was hit full-on by the force of his own attack. The impact threw him violently against a wall. Raven said he would send him to the same destination as his brother. Suddenly, a blade stopped right in front of the executioner's face, and Raven reacted with surprise. Ray's weapon appeared broken on the floor, having blocked the final blow. Raven yelled at him not to interfere, warning his turn would come later. Ray turned to Yuto and told him to catch something. He threw a dagger that embedded itself in the floor, and Raven reacted surprised by the distraction. Yuto then appeared behind Raven and held him firmly. He explained Raven could read his movements, but that he learned to use daggers with Ray. The dagger's blade pierced Raven's back. Yuto then pushed him to the floor. With his face bloody, he declared he finally avenged Hisashi. A series of memories of Yuto and his brother passed through his mind. The effect of Soul Limit Break ended, and his life decreased due to the power's recoil. He lamented not having managed to kill Raven with his own movements. Yuto started to fall, but Ray caught him. Ray corrected him, stating that wasn't his power, but Yuto's. Yuto then called him by his true name, Ray. He asked about Jack and Clokey, but received as an answer that those small fish were already taken care of. Ray pointed with his thumb and said they were lying right there. On the floor, Jack and Chloe lay defeated. Moments before, Ray was preparing to see how the two would handle the situation. Jack and Chloe questioned him for looking away, but Ray just asked if the two were still alive. Jack raised his scythe and activated Death Aura. A wave of energy advanced and enveloped the area. Ray found himself inside a special space created to enhance abilities. Jack unleashed a wide slash in his direction. The attack launched him into the air, unbalancing him. Next, Chloe fired a piercing attack against the target. He provoked him, asking if he could dodge in the air without anywhere to support himself. But Ray moved faster, cutting Jack. Then he appeared behind Chloe and immobilized him with a blade at his neck. Ray called him an idiot for throwing his weapon away. Yuto commented it was an instant annihilation, and Ray agreed, saying it was to be expected with such a power difference. Yuto apologized, explaining he couldn't move after the fight, but Ray just told him to lie there. A new enemy approached behind them, questioning if it wasn't a bit early to relax. He was surprised Mouse had defeated Raven, but observed Yuto could barely breathe. Ray realized the Shadow Guild reinforcements arrived before those of Wings of Genesis. Facing about 20 new opponents, he calculated the reward of 100,000 yen per person. Ray then commented that Dungeon was becoming a great hunting ground. The last of the Shadow Guild reinforcements fell defeated to the floor. Ray commented they were ridiculously weak for how they looked, while Yuto said it was better they were worth the same reward. Next, Ray spotted 2 cars approaching in the distance. He undid his appearance, stating, Wings of Genesis finally arrived, and he could already abandon the disguise. Tsukino Yamagata, guild master of Wings of Genesis, approached and congratulated him for the good work. She was impressed that just the two of them managed to seal the Shadow Guild base, but Rei said it was nothing special. Tsukino asked about the other person, and he pointed to Yuto, who was passed out on the floor. She observed he was barely alive and concluded it must have been an exhausting fight. Then Tsukino announced that, from that moment, Wings of Genesis would also help in the base blockade. One of the members questioned the reason for so much work, suggesting they should just crush the criminals inside. Another member agreed, stating they could annihilate the Shadow Guild at once, but the request was denied. Tsukino declared Rei-san was the commander there and disobeying his orders was forbidden. Hoshino Yori prepared with a megaphone to give orders to the group. She asked everyone if they hadn't heard what Tsukino just said. The man who had questioned the orders told Iori not to meddle, and she accused him of underestimating her for being a woman. Rei explained the enemy's strength was in their numbers, so to prevent them from using that advantage, they would fight in that area. He warned that whoever disagreed could advance alone, but he wouldn't help nor take responsibility for their deaths. The man who previously questioned him raised his hand to agree with the plan. To the other members' surprise, no one else opposed the strategy. He appealed to Tsukino-san, but she said that look wouldn't get him anywhere. Rei asked Yuto to keep an eye on the two, and he agreed. The captured prisoners were then sent to the guild. The group camped outside the base, preparing food on grills. Tsukino commented 3 hours had passed since they arrived, but the Shadow Guild hadn't come out yet. Rei believed they must have noticed the arrival of reinforcements. He explained they could simply leave them without supplies and crush them when they tried to break the blockade. Meanwhile, they ate meat thanks to Wings of Genesis, who supplied everything. Iori commented that although missions with camping could be difficult, a comfortable environment allowed them to fight better. But Tsukino observed the sky and said that brief rest could end soon. She then received a notification and informed that 2 suspicious individuals were approaching. Rei prepared for battle, stating it was just 2. One of the members suggested it could be reconnaissance, but Rei denied it. He explained in player versus player combat, quality surpassed quantity, and 2 skilled fighters were more problematic than 100 weak ones. Rei asked Yuto if he had any idea who the enemies were. Yuto confirmed and revealed there were superiors stronger than Raven in the guild. He mentioned the codenames Beta and Gamma, and finally Alpha, but admitted not knowing much more beyond that. An image from the reconnaissance team showed 2 individuals advancing at high speed. Rei asked Yuto if he recognized them, but Yuto replied he never saw either of them before. However, by the situation, they could be Beta and Gamma. Rei then deduced someone could be hidden in the castle for a pincer attack. Tsukino offered to face one of them alone. She suggested Rei-san face one, she another, and everyone else handle the last one, but he told her to do as she wished. Yuto alerted everyone to be careful, as he only met Alpha once but never saw anyone so sinister. Rei turned to Tsukino and asked if stronger enemies meant bigger rewards. Tsukino Yamagata lamented the reward per person was fixed, stating it was more lucrative to take down weaker enemies. One of the leaders left the remaining team captains in Yuto Maida's care, who accepted the responsibility. Tsukino raised her sword and asked if everyone was ready, receiving unanimous confirmation from the team. Under the full moon, screams echoed through the location, and everyone wondered what was happening suddenly. Tsukino immediately ordered everyone to retreat. A large explosion happened right in front of the group. The impact hurled various members far away. Facing the destructive power, a member reported some were hit and requested medical help urgently. One of the newcomers realized not everyone was eliminated and ordered a new shot. Yuto and Tsukino prepared for combat, and he declared they would face the man using 2 weapons. But Tsukino stopped him, saying that wouldn't be necessary. She launched an attack directly against the 2 adversaries. The attack hit the 2 opponents full on. Tsukino stated she would handle both alone. Lying on the castle, a man complained about the ruckus, calling the intruders rude. Then, the hooded figure with the stem in his mouth said not to interrupt his moon viewing. An enormous explosion consumed the battlefield. One of the allies observed the scene and commented how incredible it was. Tsukino Yamagata revealed her attack wasn't even intended for situations of combat between players. One of the adversaries leapt toward her with a great sword. The blow was delivered with force, but Tsukino blocked the attack. Another opponent joined the combat and asked if she was the leader of Wings of Genesis. Hoshino Yori intervened to block an attack, but Huki hit her by surprise. Huki celebrated finding decent opponents on the battlefield. Hoshino Yori thanked for the help received. The adversary mocked, questioning if that was all the 10 Transcendentals had to offer. He continued stating they seemed capable against monsters but lacked real battle experience. Tsukino confronted him, saying not to underestimate the 10 Transcendentals and their vast experience. The opponent clarified he referred to experience in killing people. Jack leapt into the air and announced the activation of one of the abilities. He adjusted his glasses while an interface appeared in front of him. Tsukino was hit suddenly by an attack coming from behind. The master composed herself and faced her new opponent, who wielded a peculiar sword. Then she realized she was wounded and bleeding. Her vision began to distort, while a status alert confirmed she was poisoned. Teammates screamed her name in worry. One of the healers immediately launched an area healing spell over her, but the healing effect caused even more damage to Tsukino. The young healer realized her magic didn't work. The adversary revealed it was useless, as there was no healer strong enough to negate his poison. Tsukino understood the situation and drove her sword into the ground for support. She decided to finish the fight quickly, before the poison spread completely. Then she advanced with a powerful blow against the enemy. The opponent was forced to retreat by the intensity of the attack, commenting on the frightening power. He provoked Tsukino, saying she only knew how to use flashy blows that didn't hit the target. He tried a counterattack, but Tsukino dodged at the last second. The master prepared for a new attack. Then she launched a whirlwind of flames against the enemy, but the adversary remained unharmed in the middle of the fire, saying that was useless. He revealed having an ability that negated fire, but an ally of Tsukino appeared behind with a giant hammer. The man approached quickly to deal the blow. Then he struck the ground with all his might. Michael appeared and landed a punch on the adversary, who called him a muscular freak. Multiple projectiles were fired in his direction. A woman with a spear advanced to pierce him. At the same time, an archer and a swordsman launched coordinated attacks. The three attacks combined and caused a large explosion at the location. Tsukino explained area attacks lost power and fire attack smoke should be avoided in numerical disadvantage. She questioned the fallen opponent if he thought she wouldn't know something so basic. A system notification announced the player's death and the removal of Tsukino's poison. Michael helped her stand up, and she commented their training was worth it, as the smoke worked as a distraction. Michael stated the strength of Wings of Genesis wasn't just in the individual, but in the organization as a whole. They gathered in front of a large explosion, because that was why they fought. In another part of the battle, Yuto Maeda attacked Huki with a blow of his blade. Huki was hit full on and mentioned hearing Mouse betrayed them. Next he stated Yuto's strength was below his, but the real problem for Huki was Hoshino Yori approaching in the background. He questioned if the spy's information was wrong, since her analysis didn't match her ability. Huki realized he entered her attack range without noticing, as he never heard her combat skills were so high. Then he was hit by multiple attacks coming from above. The three were enveloped in a storm of blades. Huki decided he needed to create some distance between them, but he was suddenly immobilized by threads wrapping around his body. He looked at the threads holding him. Hoshino Yori clasped her hands and prepared a new ability. Then she launched her attack, creating a trap on the ground around Huki. Huki was completely consumed by the flame trap. Rei approached Hoshino Yori and commented the fight seemed to have ended, and she agreed everything went well. Then Rei called her name and Yori responded affirmatively. He held her in his arms, while the others in the background questioned what was happening. A voice announced visual swap was deactivated. The ability undid itself, revealing two figures in the place of one. One of the team men celebrated the strategy's success. Hoshino Yori vented she was very nervous and pretending to be Rei-san was too much for her. Another member realized the swap and questioned what was happening. Yori then explained she used her ability to switch places with Rei, leaving the PvP battles to a professional. Rei commented the idea was Tsukino and Yori's, and surprisingly it worked well. Reunited with his team, he stated only one opponent remained. He headed to the castle and asked how long Alpha planned to observe them from above. The adversary appeared on the roof, identified him as Endo Rei, and told him not to get full of himself. He continued stating it didn't matter how many weaklings gathered, their fate wouldn't change. The man declared that place would become their tomb, while Rei observed him in silence. The opponent leapt from the castle to attack the group below. Rei ordered Tsukino and Yuto to take everyone and evacuate the location immediately. A great sword descended from the skies in his direction. He dodged the attack and slid across the floor while the opponent landed. Multiple swords materialized in the air, all aimed at the adversary. The enemy declared Endo Rei wouldn't manage to escape. Rei moved at high speed to dodge the rain of attacks. He continued dodging the barrage of blows. Then he managed to parry one of the attacks with his own sword. Various spectral hands and swords appeared around him. The ghostly hands advanced across the battlefield. They intercepted and blocked all the blades attacking him. The opponent was surprised his ability was blocked at first sight, and acknowledged Rei really passed the trial of Earth almost alone. Tsukino observed the scene and questioned what those arms were. Rei explained they were the invisible hands of the spiritual berserker, an ability that attacks with a spiritual clone. He warned Tsukino that Alpha's ability drained stamina quickly and asked for support to prevent enemy healers from intervening. Tsukino ordered everyone capable of ranged attacks to aim at the castle, and the team confirmed the command. The adversary went on the attack, calling their resistance useless in a battle of attrition. Rei was forced to retreat, unable to maintain distance from the opponent. He recognized the spiritual berserker class was strong at low levels due to the overwhelming number of attacks. The enemy provoked him, asking if running was all he could do. Tsukino and Hoshino observed the scene, commenting Rei-san was being pushed back due to the adversary's insane speed and power. But Yuto asked them to look more closely. He explained Rei wasn't retreating, but rather blocking all attacks that could be fatal. Rei knew the opponent's class consumed a lot of stamina, but if he faltered, he wouldn't manage to block the blows. Then Yuto questioned what Alpha would do next. The adversary got irritated and launched a powerful attack. The blow transformed into a wall of blades advancing against Rei. But Rei activated his spiritual overload, conjuring countless swords descending from the skies. He advanced toward the attack while the opponent commented on his lack of originality. The rain of swords hit the battlefield with devastating force. Then a large dragon materialized from the attack. Tsukino and Hoshino observed the creature, and Tsukino recognized it. Mounted on the monster, Rei told the soul serpent to rejoice as there was plenty of food for it. The adversary questioned what a mere snake could do. Rei advanced mounted on the serpent at high speed. 3 healers from the enemy team launched their healing spells. One of them complained healing couldn't keep up with the excessive damage. Alpha then exhibited the power of the spiritual berserker. He mocked Rei for facing him without a main class, calling him a beginner. While Tsukino asked the healing team to hold firm, one of the healers realized Rei's life hadn't decreased. Alpha noticed something and wondered what that was. The serpent attacked with its tentacles and grabbed the opponent. Alpha realized Tsukino's serpent had multiplied. Rei explained it would be strange if they didn't multiply with all the food he provided. The multiple serpents completely destroyed the adversary's attacks. Rei announced the food seemed to have run out, but added for Alpha not to worry, while the creatures held him firmly. Then Rei pointed at the opponent and said the main dish was still alive and well. Alpha remained silent, immobilized by the serpents. Mounted on the serpent, Rei advanced over the battlefield. Alpha then questioned him if he was being called food. The adversary leapt to attack, saying for Rei to regret his words in the afterlife. The serpent created a spiritual territory with its multiple bodies. The 2 combatants faced each other, ready for the next move. Standing on the creature, Rei prepared for the attacks advancing in his direction. His opponent used an ability that increased arm speed and power in exchange for shorter range. Rei realized the adversary's fighting style consumed resources very fast and wouldn't last long enough to defeat the serpents. Therefore, he concluded the best move was to launch a powerful attack from above. In another location, Yudo Maeda blocked a series of projectiles and advanced against his opponent. He kept focus on the combat. Around, other team members also fought their own battles. 2 combatants crossed swords in a standoff. One of the men declared his opponent revealed himself, and it was time for his punishment, hitting both at high speed. In the middle of the main battle, Alpha tried a surprise attack from behind. Rei dodged the opponent's blade and counterattacked with a quick, precise movement. The blow hit Alpha full on. Fallen, the adversary questioned how Rei managed to block his perfect surprise attack. Rei replied it was far from perfect, as he already knew about the 2 spies from the beginning. In a previous scene, he had instructed Yudo to keep an eye on the 2. Alpha then cursed him, asking if he thought he would survive after turning the guild against himself. Under the full moon, Rei stated the Shadow Guild's main forces were defeated, and it was time to collect the spoils. Below, various people and trucks were gathered on the battlefield. 5 defeated enemies were tied up, with a note detailing the 1 million yen reward per person. The spoils were loaded onto trucks. Companions informed the loading was complete, and Rei congratulated them for the good work. Rei told Tsukino she could take what remained in the castle, but she thought he had already taken everything. He then offered some weird white powder left behind, but Tsukino refused the offer. At the Gold Farm Player Guild headquarters, the team gathered. Rumi Sato informed Rei the government reward had been transferred, and he commented on the speed. A colleague revealed that in recognition of contributions, Gold Farm, or rather, Rei-san, received an assistant from the government. Rei stated he didn't need the government monitoring him, and the colleague said he imagined that response. Facing the pile of treasure, the group wondered how to liquidate the spoils. The suggestion to sell at a precious metals exchange was discarded, as the items were from a criminal organization. A woman approached and asked if Endu Rei-san was present. Rei turned to see who the newcomer was. She asked if he didn't remember her, as they met during the Player Association rank certification exam. But Rei replied he didn't bother remembering things that didn't pay him money. The woman asked him to remember her now and introduced herself as Misaki Sakuma. Rumi Sato recognized her as the rank exam receptionist, and Rei commented she looked completely different. Rei then asked if she would yield him money, and Misaki confirmed with enthusiasm. She explained she was designated by the Japanese government as his free assistant, which would save costs, but Rei refused, stating he already had enough people and free labor. Misaki insisted, asking if even so she wouldn't serve, as she would do anything. His teammates reacted to her offer to do anything. She listed her skills, from cleaning the office and organizing vehicles to laundering untraceable assets. She continued offering to acquire explosives, weapons, and even cover up illegal activities if useful. Rei considered the proposal of government cooperation. Then he tested her, asking what she would do to launder gold bars with untraceable origins. Misaki detailed her plan to sell the gold as contraband and funnel the money back to him under the table. She mentioned gold from the mountains of Tochigi and asked if she should try. Ray simply stated he didn't trust her. As a test, Misaki proposed an advance of 6 billion yen, promising to transfer the difference of the actual gold value later. Ray questioned her if she could do that, and Misaki Sakuma stated she had authorization to manage funds and only needed 10 minutes to solve it. He then started a 10-minute timer on his cell phone and challenged her to try. Misaki understood the order and walked away while the group watched her. 10 minutes later, the task was completed. Rumi Sato verified her device and announced 6 billion yen was transferred by the Player Association. Misaki returned and asked if now he understood what she could do. She stated she believed she could be useful to him. He gives instructions for the detailed invoice to be sent to a specific recipient. Misaki Sakuma announces that the Tochigi gold has been exchanged. She hands him the detailed valuation report, informing him that the difference of over 1 billion yen has been transferred. After reviewing the report, Ray acknowledges that she seems quite useful. But before officially welcoming her into Gold Farm, he says he needs to ask her one thing. He questions what the government's true objective is. Misaki decides to be honest, since it would become obvious soon enough. She reveals that the goal is to combat the recruitment of talented players by foreign countries. Ray understands. He warns her that if he can't make money here, he'll go to another country. So, she had better try her hardest to ensure he earns as much as possible. Enthusiastically, she understands and accepts the condition. An enormous stack of documents is placed on the table. Rumi Sato asks Misa-san to process all that paperwork. She also charges her with selecting the missions for the 3rd week of the month. A colleague comments that Rumi-san is subtly demanding at work. Ray confirms that's exactly why he made her the guild master. He observes Misaki at her desk and asks what's wrong. Misaki informs him that while checking the database, she noticed no new missions have been added in the last 4 days. She finds it strange that there are none at all, since there's usually some fluctuation in mission occurrence. Ray questions the fact that there isn't a single new mission. He stares intently at her. Ray then instructs her to confirm the information with the government and set everything else aside. Misaki agrees. She opens a drawer and takes out an item. Misaki activates a remote telepathy skill with the object. A pillar of energy rises from the city toward the sky. She begins to receive information from various sources. Misaki turns and reports that all agencies have confirmed there haven't been any new missions in Japan for the past 4 days. Even the Earth observation satellite hasn't detected any new missions or dungeons. She adds that the same phenomenon is happening in 14 other countries. Ray concludes that this is the prelude to a large-scale mission. He instructs that obtaining all available high-reward missions must be prioritized, as regular missions are likely to stop for a while. A system notification appears for numerous players in the city, announcing that a new mission has begun. The system notification announces the large-scale mission, Waterfall Judgment. The main event has a 90-day limit to defeat the boss in the target area spanning all of Asia. Failure will result in the destruction of the region. Rumi Sato notices the notification and questions him about the plan, since they still have smaller missions underway. Ray explains that for now, they will continue with the already accepted missions. He decides they will put the mission aside until the rewards increase, considering focusing elsewhere depending on the value. Rumi asks him if he would really let Japan perish if they abandoned Asia. Ray replies that it depends on the reward. He instructs Misa to start preparing contracts for the mission, as they will be competing with guilds from all over the world. He also asks her to select potential partners. Misa suggests that Genesis Wings isn't a bad option, but there might be cheaper guilds willing to cooperate. 1 week later, at the Gold Farm headquarters, Misaki informs them that the mission contract details have been released, with a reward of around 70 billion yen. She explains that the missions occurred on 5 continents, but only Asia and Australia are open for private contracts. Ray comments that, as expected, large-scale missions are on another level. Since the reward is fixed, securing the contract will depend on reputation. Misaki states it was a good decision to partner with Genesis Wings. In a meeting room, representatives from the 2 guilds discuss the contract terms. During the meeting, one of the men claims that having Tsukino of the 10 Transcendentals is a great advantage, but they were also the cheapest option. He confirms the terms of the agreement, where they keep 70% and the other party gets 30%. Tsukino waves goodbye. Back at the office, Ray asks Misaki if they will manage to get at least 1 contract, but she says it's difficult to say. She explains that even combined, the Genesis Wings and Gold Farm guilds are ranked 100th in the world for mission completions. Misaki continues, saying that guilds focused on elite members like theirs are rarer, as most focus on numbers for low-level missions. She adds that the identity of the highest-ranked member of the 10 Transcendentals is still unknown. Then, she announces that the international meeting to finalize the teams will be in 2 weeks. Until then, they will gather information and prepare. 2 weeks later, everyone arrives at the large international conference hall. The venue is packed with players from various guilds. As they walk, one group member observes that only 4 teams ended up participating. Rei questions why the top international guilds didn't want the 70 billion reward. Misaki explains that more than 10 guilds were interested but couldn't gather enough members. The narration reveals that for large-scale missions, the number of capable players is limited. One team member comments that those with that skill level can earn a high income without taking so many risks. Misaki thinks it's understandable, and Tsukino adds that they also struggled to gather volunteers. Tsukino asks how many members Gold Farm is bringing for the mission, and Rei responds that it's everyone. Then he questions Misa about their chances against the assembled teams, citing Blau Vogel and Black Dragon. Misaki confirms that Blau Vogel is a guild of great international renown. She explains that they have already declared they will take on the Australia mission, which practically guarantees their victory. For the Asia mission, Misaki informs them that the competition will be a direct confrontation with Black Dragon. Rumi Seto points out that Black Dragon doesn't have a track record of success in national-level missions, and that with Genesis wings, their victory should be easy. Her guild partner replies that she hopes so too. The conference continues with the teams seated in their respective places. One of the Black Dragon members observes the other competitors from behind a fan. In a grand hall, an assembly is gathered for an important presentation. Then it's announced the contractor for the Australian continent mission is Blau Vogel. He thanks everyone with a big smile. Next, the hostess calls up the Japanese team for the Asian continent mission selection. Tsukino stands for her presentation as a colleague, wishes her luck. She concludes her speech, affirming her team's ability to overcome the waterfall trial. The audience applauds the presentation. Another group watches everything intently from their table. One colleague remarks that the public response seems positive. The other agrees it wasn't bad, but points out the real issue will be the rival team's presentation. A man from the other team thanks Tsukino for her extremely boring presentation. He then proposes discussing something more intriguing to keep the committee awake. He begins lecturing on the low defense and limited mobility of healers. A young woman in the audience reacts to his words. The presenter claims research shows over 70% of team eliminations involve healers. So he questions if it wouldn't be better to simply get rid of healers altogether. He adds that neither healers nor the fragile classes depending on them are necessary. He explains his team consists of sword masters, staff masters, and fist masters. All these classes can protect themselves using their surrounding aura, making healers obsolete. He reveals that in the past, this exact composition was used to clear the Storm trial. They also overcame the Abyss trial, and even the Eastern Lands trial. Even without experience in the Waterfall trial, he believes they can conquer it with the same methods. The audience reacts positively to the proposal. A man in the audience watches with a faint smile. Rei turns to his companion and states they are finished. Tsukino questions how a strategy without healers could work and asks for Rei's opinion. Rei replies that depending on the mission, like the Abyss trial, that might be the best approach. But for the Waterfall trial, it's a terrible combination. Tsukino predicts they will be totally annihilated. The presenter concludes his explanation, hoping everyone understands they are the most suitable choice. With both presentations finished, the hostess announces that an evaluation meeting will follow immediately. The meeting's content will remain confidential while members deliberate. One of the girls asks Rei-san if everything will be okay. She adds the UN wouldn't choose a team that couldn't succeed, but Rei just replies that either way, it won't be a bad result for them. The rival team leader approaches and asks if they aren't the ones who already lost. Rei questions the term losers, and the other confirms, saying it was a good effort for nothing. Tsukino reacts, stating that's quite a declaration. Her rival just smiles, ignoring the fact that results haven't been announced yet. He reveals the results were decided before they even arrived. Rei questions him, asking if he bribed them. The other team leader responds with a simple, "Who knows?" He adds that having a healer and a female leader is a blessing in disguise, as they will avoid a pointless death. Tsukino just comments on how pitiful the situation is. The man from the other team reacts subtly to her words. Tsukino states that although he is arrogant and not very bright, his guild has protected people and completed missions. She says it would be a great loss if they were annihilated in a reckless attempt, so she suggests they withdraw. The rival leader enrages and yells at her not to underestimate Black Dragon. He begins preparing one of his techniques. Tsukino unsheathes her weapon, ready for confrontation. Suddenly, Rei appears and grabs the man's hand, asking him to calm down. The Black Dragon leader wonders when Rei arrived there. Rei apologizes for his leader's behavior and withdraws the request for the other team to give up. Then he questions if he didn't read the recruitment terms correctly. The terms state that if the contracted team loses the ability to complete the mission, the second chosen team will take over. And in such cases, the reward value will increase according to the remaining mission time. Rei concludes that in other words, they would receive more money. The rival leader starts laughing, questioning how a joke team like theirs could succeed where they would fail. But he claims the joke is hilarious because they have already failed. Ray stares at him and asks what he means by failed. He reveals the committee already decided they will get the contract, regretting not letting them win. That way, they could have a bigger reward and watch the Japanese die. Tsukino comments that it's refreshing to see such arrogance. Then the evaluation results are announced for the team that will undertake the waterfall trial. Both teams await the final decision. The announced contracted team is Black Dragon. Ray congratulates the rival team leader and asks him to take as long as he needs to fail, because the longer it takes, the greater their reward will be. The Black Dragon leader calls him ridiculous and withdraws with his team. Back in the Gold Farm control room, the team regrouped after the announcement. Tsukino asked what their next move was. Should they head back to Japan? But Ray declared they were going to China. They needed to be near the waterfall trial location to wait for the Black Dragon to fail. He told his teammate to book cheap tickets to China, but she insisted on getting safe ones instead. Suddenly, a young woman burst in, saying she had a request for all of them. Ray turned around. "Who are you?" The girl introduced herself as Marie from Blauvogel. She clung to him, complaining she was starving. Tsukino explained that Marie had the shared language ability. She could speak her native tongue, and they would understand. Marie thanked her and started speaking German, asking them to take on her mission. A team member commented that Blauvogel had 3 of the 10 Transcendentals. A continental-level test shouldn't be hard for them. Ray deduced that something must have happened after the contract was signed. Marie confirmed they were in big trouble. Understanding the issue, Ray offered to teach her a useful Japanese saying. She asked what it was. Ray explained Japan's most famous proverb, "Even the judgments of hell depend on money." In the background, his teammates grinned. Marie confirmed that as long as they got paid, they would take the job. She guided them down a hallway to a room. Marie announced to her brother that she'd brought the Japanese team. A man introduced himself as Daniel Keller, Guildmaster of Blauvogel. Ray introduced himself as a member of Gold Farm, and Tsukino as the Guild Master of Genesis Wings. Daniel recognized Tsukino as one of the 10 Transcendentals and said it was a pleasure. He asked them to take the mission in Australia. Ray asked why Blauvogel was backing out. Daniel revealed that out of their 3 10 Transcendentals members, 2 had been poached by the United States. He lamented the terrible timing, even though he'd heard rumors about American recruitment efforts. Ray questioned if Daniel decided one person wasn't enough for the mission. Daniel explained that this trial required at least 2 members of the 10 Transcendentals to avoid unnecessary risks. Ray commented on his caution but didn't complain, as long as the reward was in the billions. He turned to Tsukino. The mission looked doable. What did she think? Tsukino apologized and declined the offer. They couldn't participate. She explained her members feared continental-level tests. They only agreed to protect Japan in the Earth trial with great reluctance. She apologized to the people of Australia, saying she couldn't get her members' support for missions outside Asia. Then Ray offered Gold Farm to take the request, but revealed they didn't have enough personnel for a continental test. He explained that for the desert trial, they'd need at least 200 B-rank players. They couldn't even muster half that alone. Ray asked if Blauvogel, as a mercenary group, could lend them 150 B-rank players for 10% of the reward. Daniel refused. They didn't just lend out players. They always included commanders to manage risk and support staff for logistics, even if it was just to prepare for a retreat. Ray asked directly possible. Daniel replied that for 400 million yen, or at least half that, they could mobilize a decent force for a joint operation. Ray thought that was way too expensive. He called it extortion. 2 teammates commented that he only took 30% in the partnership with Genesis Wings. Daniel insisted missions cost money, but Ray questioned if he really understood that. He explained that in his guild, equipment, salaries, and travel were self-funded with a small part of the rewards, so he didn't need a huge army. Marie suggested to her brother that if they were that strong, they didn't need expensive gear. 20% of the reward would be good profit. Daniel agreed that was true, but questioned if they were really that strong. He remarked to his sister that Gold Farm was a guild with 0 members of the 10 Transcendentals. Marie told her brother her hunch was that they were strong, especially Ray-san. She stated he was much stronger than her, surprising Daniel, while Ray just nodded. Daniel asked Ray-san if he knew what kind of player Marie was. Ray deduced that since 2 of the 10 Transcendentals were recruited, the remaining one was obviously her. The young woman was Marie Keller, ranked 7th among the 10 Transcendentals. Marie confirmed his deduction was correct. She then asked her brother if he knew who Ray was and prepared to move. Suddenly, vines shot toward Daniel. Ray jumped back to dodge the attack. Then he grabbed one of the vines with his hand. With a yank, he threw Marie off balance and dragged her along the ground. Marie commented that he managed to counter a surprise attack and pull her without using any skills. Daniel questioned what would happen if the attack hit him, but his sister guaranteed he would never be hit. Ray held the vine and stated that anyone who couldn't dodge that wouldn't stand a chance against the boss of the Earth trial. Daniel held his sister's hand. He said the story about Genesis Wings completing the Earth trial was a lie. He trusted his ability to judge people. He then stated directly that he didn't believe Tsukino-san could have finished the Earth trial. He revealed the person who actually completed the trial was Rei-san. Marie assured her brother that with his presence, everything would be fine. In a vast desert, a convoy of military vehicles approached. A large truck pushed forward, kicking up dust. Rei was sitting in the passenger seat. In another compartment, Daniel and Marie traveled together. At the rendezvous point, a large mercenary army was formed and waiting. Rei's team also prepared for the upcoming mission. The Blauvogel players watched closely. Daniel and Marie took their positions in front of the troops. Rei asked Daniel if they could begin. Facing the soldiers, one commented that the commander this time was from Gold Farm, a small guild from Japan. Another mercenary speculated it was just a figurehead position to make up for the deserters who left for money. Daniel addressed everyone, announcing the start of the joint operation between Gold Farm and Blauvogel. He presented Rei from Gold Farm as the mission commander. Rei was formally introduced to the troops as Endo Rei. Rei addressed the troops to make one thing very clear. He stated he would not allow anyone to die in this battle. He instructed that in case of doubt, the priority was to save as many lives as possible by following his orders. One mercenary questioned the approach, but another thought it was better than being treated as disposable. In a flashback, the reward was decided at $5 million, minus Vogel's expenses. However, for every death on Vogel's side, $10 million would be deducted from the reward. The desert test was much larger than usual, and monsters could appear at any moment. Rei repeated his order, putting safety first. He gave the command for everyone to advance. Suddenly, the ground shook and vehicles were thrown about. A soldier wondered if it was an earthquake. An enormous creature emerged from the sand. A scout spotted the enemy 2 kilometers away and ordered the attack to begin. The artillery team prepared to fire. The commander gave the order. Multiple shells fired toward the target. The projectiles hit the creature in a massive explosion. A soldier asked if they hit it, but another ordered them to keep shooting. Other soldiers fired their own weapons at the creature. A new explosion called Coin Explosion hit the monster. Rei watched the scene intently. He asked a soldier about the cost of the shells. The man explained they were using the cheapest ones. The soldier revealed the shells contained only 5 franc coins. Rei then contacted Misa. She responded that satellite data and comms were working perfectly. He asked her to verify the cost of Vogel's mortar shells, informing her they were filled with 5 franc coins. Misa calculated the value, stating the base processing cost was 300,000 yen. She concluded the total was about 1 million yen per shell. Rei was shocked by the cost of 1 million yen per shot, while a teammate yelled his name. He ordered them to cease fire and just report locations. From now on, they would handle the targets. A scout spotted 3 more enemies approaching from the front left. Rei drew his sword. He jumped high, already preparing for a strike. With a single movement, he hit the monsters simultaneously. Daniel commented they were being stingy with shells that cost only 1 million. He worried about using skills that should be saved for stronger enemies. Watching the battle from afar, she stated that for now, there would be no problems while they were there. Marie reassured her brother, telling him not to worry, because his turn would come soon. The desert trial really began now. In the middle of a strong sandstorm, the trial's core was finally sighted. Rei and his team prepared. The moment had arrived. A soldier announced that the sandstorm combat gear was ready. Rei ordered them to prepare for entry, and Daniel confirmed the command. The teams joined the entry formation. Following training, one leader instructed his team to protect the Vogel members, as visibility would be 0. He reminded everyone to keep their eyes open, since the storm shouldn't cause much damage. Sword in hand, Rei gave the final order to enter, and the group confirmed. 2 Vogel soldiers watched as the formation advanced into the storm. The mercenaries hesitated, but concluded they couldn't be afraid if even a small eastern guild was moving forward. And then, they also ran into the sandstorm. Inside the storm, a soldier complained about the darkness, wondering if the sand was blocking the light. The team advanced together through the gloom. Suddenly, 2 large glowing eyes appeared ahead. A giant creature appeared before 2 soldiers, and one ordered everyone to attack. The 2 looked around and realized something was wrong. They concluded they had been separated from the main force. With no other choice, one soldier advanced, instructing his partner to aim for the monster's eyes. The second jumped and launched an attack with iron needles, but the needles ricocheted off the creature's face. His companion advanced with a sword to deliver a powerful slash. The monster lifted its paw to intercept the blow. With a sharp movement, it knocked the soldier to the ground. The other ran to help him, and the wounded one confirmed he was okay. The creature prepared to finish off the 2 fallen soldiers. Suddenly, a surprise attack hit the monster. Rei and his team arrived, and the soldier remarked that was close. A member of Rei's team ordered them not to leave gaps in the defense network. Another rushed to heal the wounded soldier, while a third ordered them to protect him as if he were a $10 million package. Rei reinforced that each of their lives was worth $10 million, and his companions apologized. Daniel ordered them to reform the formation, with those who couldn't defend themselves forming a tight cluster. Marie yelled for no one to lose sight of the teammates next to them. She warned them that if they got separated, they would die. The group of soldiers finally approached the exit of the sandstorm. One realized it was getting brighter, and they were almost through. Daniel and Marie encouraged them to hang on just a little longer. They emerged from the storm into intense light. They arrived at a large circular stone structure in the center of the desert. In the center was the main Manhwa pillar, the core of the trial, protected by a barrier. Above it floated the sun of the trial, an indestructible entity. The sun grew a face and welcomed the pathetic challengers. Daniel was surprised it spoke. Ray explained the sun wouldn't attack as long as they didn't enter the barrier. Then he clarified that by destroying the 3 external pillars, it would be possible to weaken the sun. Daniel confirmed the pillars could be attacked from a safe zone, but were extremely resistant. Ray then designated Vogel to bombard the external pillars with maximum firepower, while his team would be responsible for the core. He instructed them to keep the pillars in the red state at all times, and continue attacking as soon as they got there. Marie complained that although she expected this role, the task was boring. She asked if she could join the fight against the core to test her original plan. Ray refused. He explained that calculations showed the damage to the pillars would be insufficient even with all of Vogel's firepower. Marie then suggested that perhaps Ray-san could take her place. Ray pointed his sword at the redhead and just said, 10 billion. He warned that he was in command, and disobedience would carry a penalty of $10 billion. He added that if she was willing to pay, she could join the fight, but he didn't guarantee survival. Marie backed down, saying the price was a bit too expensive for her allowance. Ray sheathed his sword and commented it was a shame. With everyone in position, he prepared to initiate the attack on the core. He just said he was starting. The mercenaries unleash full force on the pillar. One man calls out that the pillar has turned red. His teammate confirms theirs has changed color as well. Ray observes their progress, commenting that everything is going smoothly. He orders the Gold Farm assault team to cease their attack on the pillar and move to the next phase of the strategy. Meanwhile, the son of the trial watches the battle unfold. Marie approaches her brother, asking him to reconsider what she mentioned earlier. Daniel hesitates, calling it a bit much. She suddenly binds him with her vines, asking if he intends to defy her. Daniel then walks over to Ray. He says he has a favor to ask. He wants Vogel to handle that boss. Ray questions him. Wasn't he hired precisely because they thought they couldn't handle it alone? Daniel explains that having backup allows them to fight with peace of mind, since failure isn't an option. Ray holds out his hand, reminding him of the 10 billion penalty for breach of contract. Daniel confirms he's aware. Ray warns him the reward split won't change. Daniel will just be out 10 billion for taking unnecessary risks. Daniel understands there's no financial benefit, but he says he'll do it anyway for Marie's sake. He justifies it by stating that as a renowned guild, they need experience in continental-level trials. He asserts that the members present are Vogel's best, and they are risking their lives for the organization's future. But Marie tells him not to overcomplicate things. As players, it's only natural to want to attempt high-difficulty challenges. She adds that just because the game has become reality doesn't mean they'll hesitate to face those challenges. Ray replies that he doesn't understand, surprising the redhead. He says he doesn't care, as long as she pays the fine. Daniel informs him the funds have already been transferred and asks Ray to check his account. Ray confirms the prompt payment. Daniel double-checks that they really won't interfere, confirming that with their main force tied up, Ray will need to manage the damage to the pillars. Then, Ray activates the Eye of the Soul. An information window reveals that extracting a Type-C soul fragment from Daniel is now possible due to the unexpected payment. He notices there was no reaction and wonders if the contract penalty overrides the condition. Low-grade souls are easy to collect, but Type-C souls are valuable, and he needs to get one. Ray turns to Daniel and asks if he'd like to buy insurance. He offers to save him if things get dangerous for an additional payment of 10 billion. Daniel finds the offer attractive but refuses, stating there's no need. Marie explains everyone there is choosing to fight of their own free will. She adds that paying 10 billion is ridiculous, as the enemy's attacks won't reach them once they cross the line. Ray ignores the unnecessary comments and tells them to do whatever they want. His team will handle the pillars. Marie asks everyone if they're ready, and the group confirms in unison. Daniel explains the enemy's true core is the Manhwa pillar. Marie's main unit will attack the protective barrier. Once the barrier is destroyed, they will use a Saint Elmo's fire missile to hit the pillar directly. He warns them not to let their guard down for a moment after crossing the line. With the order given to start the battle, the team advances toward the barrier. Daniel uses Knight's intimidation to draw the enemy's attention. He challenges the sun monster to attack him while the other enemies are targeted. The sun prepares a massive attack. It fires an energy beam, offering the challengers a peaceful death. The attack hits Daniel's barrier. He struggles to maintain his defense against the powerful beam. An ally casts a water enchantment. He notes that water attributes seem to work well against the sun's heat. Marie realizes her brother's provocation is also effective. They can win if they keep the pillars weakened. She advances with her thorns, encouraging everyone to press onward. One of the knights uses a skill to boost the allies' attack power. Marie launches an attack with multiple sharp thorns. Two warriors unleash their throwing and obsidian fissure attacks. The combined strikes hit the protective barrier. Marie asks how they liked that attack. The sun monster prepares a counterattack. It fires multiple projectiles toward the team, warning the challengers to prepare themselves. Marie yells for everyone to dodge, but some are caught in the explosions. Marie herself takes a direct hit from the attack. She realizes the density of the projectiles and orders everyone to retreat. Then, a dagger is pressed against the neck of one of Marie's allies. Her companions react to what is happening to the woman named Maria. Her blood spurts as she is suspended by vines. The woman activates a skill, and giant legs emerge from her back. Her form alters, revealing the Blood Rose. The son of the trial fires multiple energy projectiles. The Blood Rose advances to intercept the attacks. She manages to block all the shots with her appendages. Yato comments on her incredible mobility. Rei explains that the true value of that ability lies in its offensive power. The Blood Rose launches multiple thorns toward the barrier. Each thorn possesses offensive power, equivalent to a normal player's skill. Someone questions if such a powerful technique wouldn't consume an absurd amount of health. But Rei clarifies that the strategy is optimized with health-boosting skills and support from allies during cooldown times. Daniel comments that Rei is well informed. Rei replies that information exists in certain places. One of Rei's companions asks if the St. Elmo's fire is no longer needed because of this. Rei denies it, explaining that the logical decision is to concentrate all firepower once the barrier falls. He adds that this is the best option, provided they ignore the cost. The protective barrier reaches 50% capacity. Suddenly, the ground begins to tremble and rise. The son of the trial demands a sacrifice from the challengers in order to proceed. The Blood Rose prepares to block a new attack. She realizes that hard mode has started now that the barrier is at 50% health. The son of the trial then launches an even more powerful attack. The Blood Rose questions the strength of the blow, wondering if even worse versions exist. She doesn't understand the enemy's capacity. Even with the red pillars, she decides it's best to retreat, but a new barrier appears, blocking her withdrawal. Her companions react with surprise at the appearance of the secondary barrier. The sun explains that to attack the guardian barrier, at least one player must remain at the altar. The Blood Rose realizes they cannot retreat. She accepts the challenge. She advances to the center of the arena. An energy beam hits Marie. One of her appendages is pierced. She wonders if she failed to dodge, then realizes her eyes are adjusting. With adapted vision, the Blood Rose begins to evade the attacks. She manages to damage the barrier with her thorns. Rei observes that the group has managed to recover and praises the team's courage. Daniel asks if the difficulty won't increase further. Rei replies that the situation remains risky and offers to help Marie for 5 billion. Daniel is surprised, questioning if the insurance fee wasn't 1 billion yen. Rei informs him he just raised the price, and it will keep going up. Daniel hesitates but decides to pass on the offer, trusting in Marie. Rei simply says he understands. The Blood Rose realizes there's no chance to attack. The barrier's health isn't even decreasing. She decides to advance with more force. She tries to break the barrier with everything she has. She manages to get through the barrage of attacks, but she is hit by a surprise blow. Marie falls defeated, and Daniel screams his sister's name. One of the mercenaries claims it's now impossible, and questions why no one is helping her. Another man tells the leader there's no way to intervene. If even Marie can't withstand the attacks, the rest of them won't be able to either. She is hit repeatedly by the shots, and pierced once again. Daniel kneels and implores Rei to save Marie. Rei holds up 3 fingers and says, 100 billion. Daniel agrees to pay whatever is necessary and pressures him to act, closing the deal immediately. Then, Rei leaps toward Marie. The sun monster reacts to his approach. Rei charged through the barrage to reach Marie. He scooped her up, dodging projectiles mid-stride. As they landed, Daniel yelled for a healer. Recovery spells flooded into her. Rei noted the wounds weren't fatal, just as expected from a durability-focused build. Daniel thanked him, saying Marie would have died without him. Rei brushed it off. No need for thanks. Risking their lives was part of the 100 billion deal. Daniel remarked that even hell bows to money, though he hadn't expected to use that proverb so soon. A notification popped up. The condition to extract the soul fragment was met. Marie started laughing. Daniel, worried, asked what was wrong. She pointed at the sky. Fighting that thing she said, was absurd. She remembered them saying they'd lost 1 or 2 of the 10 transcendentals. Tears streamed down her face. None of this made sense. Daniel comforted her, insisting it wasn't meaningless. She had fought well, but she argued that even with blood rose, she couldn't scratch the enemy. Humans shouldn't be facing this. Ray cut in. That wasn't true. Trials existed to be overcome. That's why they were called trials. Marie asked if he really thought they could still fight after seeing that. Ray confirmed it. That's exactly why they were there. Fighting the core was Gold Farm's job. Marie and Daniel watched Ray's team prepare. She asked her brother to take her to the pillar. Daniel demanded to know her plan. Just attacking the pillar, she assured him. It would be easier to maintain the weakened state from there. Daniel worried about her condition, but she insisted. As long as she was alive, she could use her skills to regenerate lost limbs. Understanding, Daniel helped her. He decided to put his faith in their plan. Ray ordered everyone to follow the strategy. The team confirmed. The sun monster fired a barrage at Ray's group. Ray dodged every single attack. He explained that as long as there was a sacrifice at the altar, the others' attacks would pass through. One girl ordered everyone to focus on the barrier while Ray played bait. Save the big skills for later. A powerful attack slammed into the protective barrier. Its health dropped to 45.2%. The sun monster watched their progress. Daniel commented that the situation was stable. Marie agreed. He wondered if they could have won earlier if they had known this method. Impossible, Marie replied. The plan relied on dodging real barrages, not just in-game mechanics. If she tried that with Blood Rose, she would have exhausted herself long ago. Daniel understood. Was the difference just levels? Marie shook her head. Her mobility was actually higher, but dodging countless attacks depended on player skill, not attributes. Daniel was impressed, relying solely on technique for that. He wondered if Ray was the last survivor of some legendary group. Marie didn't know, but watching Ray attack the barrier, she was certain he was a player on their level. The protective barrier's health finally hit 0%. It shattered into shining fragments. A girl yelled to concentrate all firepower on the main mana pillar. Multiple attacks exploded against the core, engulfing it in energy. Daniel and Marie watched, trying to see if they had succeeded. The sun monster announced Primordial Genesis. It unleashed a devastating attack, promising death to all. A system notification appeared. All attacks were now instant death. Suddenly, a colossal energy slash split the battlefield. Ray raised his sword, channeling an absurd amount of power. Energy condensed around him and his weapon. The entire air vibrated, as if the desert itself were about to explode. Ray continues focusing a huge amount of energy into his sword. Finally, the channeling is complete. The sun monster unleashes its instant death attack. He faces the incoming attacks head-on. Immediately, projectiles strike him from every direction. Daniel and Marie react to the scene, screaming their ally's name. Holding a small dagger, the swordsman explains. The attacks kill without damaging the body, making him the perfect target. His skill, Soul Reserve, delays his death for 10 seconds. With time running out, he prepares to act. He unleashes the technique known as Soul Disaster. The attack hurtles toward the mana pillar with full force. The pillar is utterly destroyed in a massive explosion. The creature begins to disintegrate. The energy from the strike causes another huge blast in the area. With the mana pillar gone, a notification confirms the desert trial has been successfully completed. Ray's team members celebrate the victory. Ray comments that it was close, but they had more breathing room than expected. He wonders internally if the pillar counted as the boss. He receives the title The First Conqueror. He's confused by the notification. A new message appears. The titles have been combined into Ancestral Conqueror, increasing damage by 100%. Ray realizes that if this title existed back in the game era, it would have completely broken the balance. A system window asks for the name of the group that cleared the trial. Everyone gathers to decide on a name. They decide to register as a joint team of Gold Farm and Blauel Vogel. The total reward is 500 million minus Vogel's costs for ammunition and personnel. At the Blauel Vogel branch in Sydney, the value is calculated at 62.25 billion yen. Daniel signs the contract. He adds the 10 billion reward for saving Marie, totaling 72.25 billion to be paid by the end of the day. Ray is asked to sign the contract if there are no objections. He smiles and says he has none. He questions if they can really pay out 70 billion that quickly. Daniel admits it's a net loss of 20 billion yen, but it's not enough to sink them. He asserts that his sister's life is worth more than that. Marie, in a wheelchair, says it will take about a week to recover, and then they'll work hard. The young woman approaches Ray-san to ask him a question. She comments that the strategy seemed to rely too heavily on individual skills. She asks if there wasn't a more direct method. Ray confirms there was, and that the trial itself told them how. Marie is confused by the answer. The swordsman recalls the sun monster's words, demanding a sacrifice to proceed. Ray explains the strategy. Have a player willing to die run toward the barrier while others attacked it. The idea was simple. The altar functioned literally as a sacrificial altar. Daniel reacts, saying the cost was too great. But the strategist argues that if an entire continent were destroyed, everyone would die anyway. So, it was the best option. He adds that they could just tie up death row inmates and throw them onto the altar. Marie comments that executing that in modern society would be a challenge. Daniel reflects that the trial might be testing not just player strength, but society itself. Contract signed and in hand, Ray states that, in a way, it's a simple trial. He concludes that as long as it's profitable, that's all that matters. The team boards a plane flying high above the clouds. A variety of dishes are served on board. One group member is surprised to receive a first-class menu. He comments it's his first time flying first class and that it's very luxurious. Then he notices something about the plane. He wonders if the flight was chartered by Gold Farm. One of the girls explains that the plane isn't fully chartered, but most people wouldn't board a flight to China. She adds that according to the news, flights to Australia are completely booked. They deduce that Australia is the only place without risk of being destroyed by a trial. Suddenly, a flight attendant approaches and asks what they would like to drink. The passenger asks the attendant for the most expensive drink available. Suddenly, strong turbulence shakes the plane, knocking down the attendant and the food. The fasten seatbelt sign turns on. Ray asks the attendant if that was turbulence. The man replies that it felt different and asks passengers to buckle up just in case. Ray observes the situation closely. The plane begins to tilt abruptly in the sky. Passengers are thrown from their seats by the sudden tilt. The flight attendant warns that the aircraft's nose is too high, and at this rate, it will stall. Ray asks Rumi about any skill to stabilize the plane, but the girl replies she has nothing like that. Next, he asks Yuto if he can do anything, but the young man claims he can only move quickly. Ray complains about their uselessness and bolts down the aisle. Arriving at the cockpit, the pilots explain that the elevator is stuck in the up position. The swordsman understands it's the plate located at the rear of the plane. He immediately asks if just pushing the piece down is enough. The pilot stares at him and questions his plans, saying it's madness to think about going outside. The man explains the temperature is minus 30 degrees and airspeed exceeds 1,000 kilometers per hour. Ray ignores him and approaches the door, trying to open it. He knows high-level players would survive even if they fell, but he worries about the newbies. The flight attendant warns that he won't be able to open the door and will be sucked out. Ray instructs Yuto to close the door as soon as he leaves and uses soul thread as a lifeline. He runs along the plane's wing, using the soul thread to maintain balance. The attendant is impressed to see him open the door with his bare hands. Outside now, Ray steadies himself to execute the next action. He comments on the cold, the strong wind, and the lack of oxygen, aware he needs to finish quickly. Using the soul thread, he ties down the aircraft's elevator. Then he secures the thread, forcing the piece down. The aircraft finally begins to stabilize in the air. Passengers celebrate in relief, praising Ray-san's actions. The young man then contacts Misa. A beam of light hits the top of a building. Misa responds, asking him to calm down. Ray informs her the plane's posture has stabilized, and he is holding the tail with the aid of the soul thread. He asks what to do next, but Misa asks him to wait while she consults the captain. In the cockpit, the captain is startled to hear Misa's voice suddenly. The girl relays the captain's order. If possible, destroy the elevator. One man questions if they can really destroy the elevator, but another confirms that if the captain ordered it, they must proceed. Ray raises his blade and prepares the attack called Soul Slash. The aircraft is struck by a slash in mid-flight. Amidst the turbulence, a passenger asks if Ray is okay. The young man informs the pilots that the elevator was destroyed as instructed. He is called a savior. Then, the captain assumes responsibility, saying it's now up to them to land the plane. An announcement informs that the aircraft is preparing for an emergency landing, asking everyone to fasten their seatbelts. The crew warns them to prepare for a water landing and brace for impact. The plane collides with the ocean surface. Soon after, passengers are safe in life rafts. One survivor points to a silver fish and asks Yuto which species is the most expensive. A girl alerts Ray that Misa has finally made contact. The young woman cheerfully announces that rescue will arrive in about 2 hours. The captain comments it was a miracle there were no casualties, and a passenger praises his piloting. Holding a fish, the young man just repeats the word accident to himself. Still holding the fish, he asks Misa if there's any news on the cause of the accident. She explains details are still under investigation, but it seems mechanisms were installed to cause defects in the elevators of some planes. Misa concludes that if this plane was a specific target, the objective was clearly Gold Farm. Back in the raft, Ray wonders how the culprits managed to bypass airport security, while a companion asks to borrow his dagger. The swordsman hands over the weapon. He comments that for a player, Tampering with a plane wouldn't be difficult, and at least the aircraft didn't explode in midair. An explanation reveals the tampering was done with very small items, as anything larger would have been detected. Yato supposes an operation of this scale suggests a large organization, perhaps a dark guild sabotaging the Asian trial. Ray agrees that's the obvious assumption, but national countermeasures should already handle profits made from trial failures. Misa is questioned if a new profit method could have been created, but she confirms not as far as they know. She adds the scale is too big for simple troublemakers. She asks if it could be revenge from a Japanese guild they dismantled. Ray considers the plan too elaborate for revenge, since dark guilds know it would be difficult to kill top players. Then he hypothesizes that the true goal might just be to delay them. The young man asks Misa if, considering the schedule of the waterfall trial, they will manage to arrive before the deadline. With confidence, she simply asks who he thinks he's talking to, guaranteeing her companions that she will get them there, no matter what happens. A portal manifests in a natural landscape. A reporter announces that this is the front of the camp for the Asian Continental Test, the waterfall test. She explains that until a moment ago, there was a constant stream of vehicles, but now there is zero activity. Meanwhile, the Black Dragon Guild declares the test can be completed. But with only 3 days left, citizens are expressing concerns. Flights and ships leaving Asia are completely booked. There are reports of single seats selling for 20 million yen. In some areas, like Noi Bai Airport in Vietnam, civil riots have broken out. Airport staff try to contain the crowd. They ask for calm, warning that just hanging onto the plane won't get them to America. A man ignores the pleas. He yells that they are going to America too, and they won't let just the rich escape. He orders them to destroy the plane, claiming that if the rich die, they'll die right along with them. The man attacks the aircraft with a sledgehammer blow. The attack causes an explosion on the plane's fuselage. Security teams take him down while the attacker screams for them to let him go. A news alert on a phone reports that a series of riots has overwhelmed governments around the world. Ray sits on a bench watching it all on his device. Then, he looks away for a moment. A portal opens near a cliff at the water's edge. An overview of the waterfall test shows the portal as the starting point for a series of waterfalls. At the site of the test's first waterfall, a group of participants lines up near the water. A surveillance drone approaches the group. A man introduces himself as the leader of Black Dragon, known as the Dragon King. The leader announces that they are about to begin the test. He informs them that according to projections, the test should be finished in half a day, and suggests they watch the live stream while they wait. Aquatic monsters emerge from the depths of the water. Someone warns that the creatures are coming with the current. The Dragon King orders his brave warriors to prepare to intercept them, and the guild responds in agreement. One of the combatants unleashes an attack called Aura Slash. Another warrior hits a creature with Energy Fist. A third delivers a blow with his staff, using the martial crash technique. The group faces the horde of monsters in the water. A player remarks that the strength of the Black Dragon Guild is truly impressive. Another questions why they were summoned if the guild is so strong, while a third mentions hearing they would need a lot of people. A system notification announces that the enemies at the first waterfall have been annihilated. Then, another message informs them that the path to the next waterfall is open for only 10 minutes. Small debris begins to fall from the cavern ceiling. Then, chains appear from above, and one of the players warns about their appearance. The guild leader orders everyone to advance, and the group begins climbing the cliff. The warriors continue to defeat monsters on their path. After another battle, the bodies of defeated creatures cover the ground. The commander announces to his companions that the 9th waterfall is complete. He states that with 12 waterfalls in total, the test's conclusion is near. Suddenly, his transmission fails, and the signal is lost. On a big screen in the city, the live stream is interrupted for the public. Rumi wonders if it wasn't supposed to be impossible to communicate during the waterfall test. Ray explains that signals normally work, concluding that the sudden loss must be interference. Yuto Maeda questions who would cause signal interference and why. Ray adds that it's to ensure what is about to happen inside doesn't leak to the outside. Inside the test, 2 men report the signal interference to the Dragon King, confirming that cell phones are also out of service. The leader of Black Dragon simply replies, "Good job." Players around them get confused and ask what the interference is about. Dragon King turns to the summoned players. He thanks them for making it this far and announces that their time has finally come. He explains that continental tests have a special weakening mechanic, and he needs their help to activate it. Excited, the players ask what they need to do. The leader simply tells them to die right there. A monstrous creature emerges from the ground behind the guild members. The summoned players react with total disbelief. As the monsters advance, the Dragon King reveals that the test's difficulty decreases the more deaths occur. With a smile, he asks if that isn't great. One of the players is snatched up by a creature's mouth and screams for help. Companions panic and start running, leaving one of them behind. The leader of Black Dragon observes the scene. He says they can run all they want. He adds that they can try to survive and escape if they have the skill for it. At the 10th waterfall of the Cascade test, the bodies of sacrificed players floated in the water. A Black Dragon member remarked that the enemies were ridiculously weak. They could easily beat them without even using skills. Holding one of the sacrificed players, the Dragon King confirmed that sacrificing lives was the main strategy for these continental tests, but he warned them. Starting from Waterfall 11, the difficulty would spike exponentially. They couldn't lower their guard. The system announced the completion of the 10th waterfall. The 11th test was beginning. New creatures started pouring down the falls. 2 warriors attacked using Martial Blade and Aura Slash. One member celebrated, thinking the enemies weren't hard. He suggested saving their skills for the final stage. Suddenly, a massive monster appeared right in front of a warrior. A teammate saved him with Flail Crash, but the saved warrior realized the creature was still alive. Then, its body broke apart into many smaller creatures. The small creatures swarmed forward. A warrior yelled that they were splitting. The Dragon King ordered everyone to calm down and focus on the enemies. Their protection would hold the damage, but one warrior realized the monsters just kept multiplying, no matter how many they killed. Meanwhile, their own defenses were weakening. Another warrior took a direct hit from a monster's attack. The Dragon King realized the number of sacrifices hadn't been enough. He questioned if some summoned players had survived. Then he prepared to intervene personally. The leader unleashed Martial Aura, hitting several enemies at once. He ordered his men to use area of effect attacks. Single target hits weren't enough anymore. 2 warriors responded with the techniques Flail Sonic Wave and Explosive Aura. Even with these attacks, the Dragon King saw the enemy numbers weren't dropping. He demanded more area skills. His men reported that all area attacks were used up. They were now on cooldown. A warrior lamented that they'd blown all their skills, but still couldn't wipe out the monsters. A system notification informed them that in Waterfall 11, monsters would keep spawning until the target number was reached. The Dragon King stared at the endless wave of monsters coming from the waterfall. His men panicked, screaming that at this rate, they'd all be eaten alive. The system then displayed the progress, showing only 6,612 out of 300,000 enemies defeated. Shocked by the number, the Dragon King wondered how they could possibly handle so many enemies. He ordered everyone to retreat, and his men started to flee. A giant monster lunged to devour a fleeing warrior. News reports announced that the Black Dragon Guild had failed to complete the Cascade test, and the Dragon King's whereabouts were unknown. Tsukino commented it went exactly as Ray predicted. He replied that their group never could have cleared that test. He took a sip of his drink, wondering what happened to those who failed. In an alley in Vietnam, the Dragon King ran desperately. He struggled to his feet, trying to catch his breath. He lamented barely escaping and wondered what he would do now. He concluded that if they didn't make it, the Japanese group had no chance either. Asia was finished. While wondering if there was any way out, he heard the words, "Fatal Penetrate." An energy beam sped toward him. The attack hit him squarely, blasting him backward. A white-haired man floated above the Dragon King's fallen body. A notification confirmed that the punishment for the Dragon King was complete. He had planned to abandon the test and flee. A man with an earring praised the one responsible for the hit, saying, "Good job." Sitting in a chair, Ridge watched everything on his phone. Ridge called the Dragon King a fool, questioning how he thought he could escape after endangering billions of lives. He then asked about the Japanese group. An assistant reported they were traveling by land and should arrive at the test site today. He added that some Genesis Wings members were missing, but the main core was mostly intact. However, he revealed that Gold Farm was demanding additional compensation. Ridge thought about Endu Ray. It was strange to discuss money in the middle of a crisis. The assistant explained that the UN committee's $300 million proposal was considered insufficient by them. Ridge insisted they couldn't give in to mercenary greed. If they failed, they'd die too. Yet, he recognized that with less than 3 days left, there was no time to negotiate. He ordered them to inform them they would add the $200 million offered by Black Dragon, and his assistant confirmed. At the entrance to the Cascade test, several players were preparing. Tsukino Yamagata greeted Ray-san on a great job. She said she wasn't worried about the plane crash because the Gold Farm elite squad wouldn't die from something like that. Ray replied that the incident was a blessing that earned them an extra $200 million. They should thank whoever tampered with the plane. Tsukino then asked about the test, which was scheduled for the next day. She asked to push up the schedule so they could rescue the survivors abandoned by the Black Dragon Guild as soon as possible. Ray listened to the request. He agreed to the rescue, but but imposed one condition. The condition was that the destiny of the rescued survivors would be left in the hands of Gold Farm. The group prepares to face the monsters descending in the waterfall test. Rei questions Tsukino's decision. He warns that finishing the test with their current strength will be tough. She simply says yes, moving forward into combat. Tsukino mentions hearing that he tracked down the missing members. Rei confirms they fled to America. She laments losing a healer and asks about the necessary blood sorcerer. Yuto Maeda confirms that one ran off too. Eiji comments that even though they brought him along, the test still requires 2 participants. It's going to be exceptionally difficult. Rei then reveals that, as for the blood sorcerer, he managed to convince a girl to come. A young woman named Fumiko introduces herself as the exclusive blood sorceress for Wings of Genesis. She explains she ran away from home to help. She tells Tsukino she couldn't refuse her insistence. The leader apologizes for forcing her to participate. Fumiko blames herself for a lack of leadership, thinking the other members would follow her. Rei comforts her, stating the fault lies with those who fled. She agrees they must make the best with whoever is left. Yuto Maeda suggests to Tsukino that they wait a day. Rei adds that sacrificing half the survivors would weaken the test. She admits considering the idea, but asserts that if they did, Wings of Genesis would lose its meaning. Tsukino then firmly declares she won't abandon those she can save, even if there's risk involved. Fumiko watches her leader with admiration. Tsukino apologizes for dragging them into a dangerous mission out of selfishness, but Rei says he doesn't care. He adds that helping players is profitable, and they might land new clients. One of the participants warns Rei-san that they're done. The swordsman realizes they finished the battle while talking. A system notification informs them enemies were eliminated. The path to the next waterfall will be open for 10 minutes. The group advances along the cliff edge toward the 10th waterfall. Rei predicts communication interruption will start at this level, while Rumi Sito confirms there is no signal. This leads him to conclude the survivors must be right there. They walk toward a lit passage at the end of the cave. Arriving at a new location, Tsukino questions if this could be it. Rei confirms. The system notifies them they've entered a hidden refuge area where health drains hourly and recovery skills are useless. Tsukino calculates they can only stay for 20 hours, while the others observe survivors lying on the ground. A group of survivors on a higher plateau questions who they are. One of them, with red hair, asks if they are part of the Black Dragon Guild. He screams, asking how they dare betray them, and strikes the ground with his spear. The survivor advances to attack, bellowing that he's going to kill them. One of the survivors yells for him to wait. Then, 2 of his companions block the attack with their own spears. The attacker questions his companion, Hagran, about what he's doing. Hagran points to the group's clothes, explaining they aren't from the Black Dragon Guild. Rei, Yuto Maeda, and Tsukino Yamagata take their positions. The red-haired survivor realizes they might be the rescue team. Rei confirms they will help them, but he adds help will come if they sign a contract and join his cash cow squad. The survivors question the term, and Rei simply confirms it. He explains he'll teach them to earn money in exchange for half their earnings as players. Next, he introduces his companions as veterans of the squad, now called Gold Farm. The survivor gets irritated at the condition of handing over 50% of earnings. His blonde companion yells that all strong players only think about exploiting the weaker ones. The red-haired one asks them to wait a moment. He points to one of the members of Rei's group and asks if that person is also part of the squad. Rei confirms, adding that Huki hands him 90% of his earnings, and the man expresses he'd prefer the percentage were lower. He then asks Huki himself what he thinks of it. The blonde survivor notices the watch Huki is wearing is extremely expensive, questioning if the squad really pays that much. Huki asks if it's a good watch. Rei replies it probably costs about 2 million yen, which isn't much to him. The 2 survivors look at each other and silently agree. One of them comments that even handing over 90%, Huki still manages to earn so much. Rei confirms that last month he made over 2 million yen. Rumi Sato whispers to Tsukino that Rei remembers even the smallest details when it comes to money. The blonde survivor asks how much Huki earned before joining the squad. Rei asks Huki what he said. The boy replies that if he remembers correctly, he was making about 140,000 yen a month. Then he shows off, saying now, thanks to Rei-san's information, he's earning much more. The 2 survivors are impressed by the revelation. Immediately, all the survivors ask to sign the contract and join the group. Rumi Sato comments that the situation feels like a pyramid scheme, but Tsukino states that despite that, it's not a lie. Rei asks everyone how much health they have left. The blonde one replies they are under 20%. He calculates this means they have almost 4 hours until they die. With a smile, Rei claims he will finish the rescue before then. The group takes position at the 11th stage of the waterfall test. Rei announces that the real test begins now. now. He asks if everyone is ready. The others confirm they are prepared for the challenge. A system notification appears. The 11th waterfall test is starting. A horde of aquatic monsters descends the waterfall, heading straight for them. The creatures advance in overwhelming numbers. Yuto Maeda and Hoshino Yori leap out to intercept the approaching monsters. Rei realizes there are too many enemies. They can't defeat them one by one. He calls out to Eiji. It's his turn now. Eiji leaps over a giant monster charging the group. He tells them to leave, buying time to him, and readies a skill. He unleashes an area of effect attack. Blood Inferno. The technique consumes the monsters in a massive explosion. Tsukino Yamagata comments on the blood sorcerer's power. Maintaining such widespread firepower is beyond even her own capacity. Rei adds that Eiji fuels the flames with his own life force. It's a profession where he risks his life. Rumi Sato instructs everyone to save their cooldown abilities for the final waterfall test. Besides Tsukino, Rei also readies himself for battle. He announces that he's going to start fighting too. The system reports that the number of defeated monsters has surpassed 20,000. Tsukino watches the count rise rapidly. Rumi notes that the enemies are being eliminated as fast as they multiply, but the group leader worries about maintaining an attack with such a vast range. Eiji shows great strain while holding the skill. A healer warns that Eiji's health has dropped below 30%. Recovery isn't keeping up. Eiji clarifies that recovery works, but the skill's energy efficiency is terrible. Saito Shinji watches a monitor. His health has hit 10%. It's dangerous. Fumiko volunteers to take his place. The young sorceress prepares to cast her own skill. She also conjures a Blood Inferno attack. With the new attack, the defeat count rises to over 66,000. The creatures continue to be consumed by the skill. One survivor observes the monsters turning to ash. Meanwhile, Rumi Sato warns that Fumiko's health is below 30%. The blood sorceress asks if Rei is ready. He confirms he just finished preparations. A large spherical artifact descends toward the battlefield. Rei concentrates and prepares his next move. He summons the Soul Flame Furnace. It lands in the middle of the clash. The furnace consumes the remaining monsters. The defeat count surpasses 132,000. Impressed, Alpha comments that this is Rei's ability. The leader instructs everyone to stop attacking the large monsters. They need to conserve skills and stamina. Tsukino asks if he can maintain this power for long. Rei simply confirms that he can. He explains that while the skill itself lacks raw power, it's enough to eliminate these enemies when boosted by his attributes. Even so, the technique's energy efficiency remains terrible. A system screen displays the furnace's duration and the soul fragments being consumed. A list of fragments from different classes keeps appearing on the interface. Rei gathers the necessary fragments to keep his skill active. A system notification shows the Soul Flame Furnace has 4 minutes and 5 seconds remaining. He concludes that at the current pace, it won't be enough, but he prefers not to use higher-level souls. He asks Saito Shinji about Eiji and Fumika's status. The man reports that Eiji's health has already returned to 80%. Eiji offers to use another Blood Inferno, and Fumika confirms she is ready to fight too. Rei notices the healers are exhausted. It's a heavy blow after losing Genesis members. He decides they need to save the healers for the final waterfall, and dismisses them for now. He selects the Type E souls in his system interface. The screen shows that Type E Sorcerer and Warrior soul fragments are being consumed. The furnace releases an even more powerful wave of energy. Eiji shouts that the skill's power keeps increasing. Tsukino observes that not even the monster's bones remain. The overwhelming energy continues to consume the remaining creatures. The system informs that the Type E soul fragments have been completely used up. The last monsters disintegrate in the water. A final notification announces that the furnace has run out. All 300,000 enemies have been defeated. With the group gathered, Rei declares another job complete. The system announces that the 11th waterfall objective is met. They have earned the right to participate in the final test. They arrive at a new waterfall, the site of the last challenge. One member comments that they finally made it. Fumika asks Alpha if completing this challenge will save all of Asia. Before them lies the 12th and final waterfall of the test. As planned, the Gold Farm members, the Genesis Wings selectees, and the main healer team dive into the waterfall. The rest of the sub-unit is told to hold their position. One guy wishes them luck, and the girl says they've got this covered. She turns to Hiroshi-san, asking for orders. He points toward 2 waterfalls, explaining that monsters will pour out of them once the test begins. A map indicates the sub-unit's job. Take down any enemies escaping the main zone where Tsukino-san is fighting. A woman warns them against pushing too hard without a healer, and they all agree. Spotting a portal, someone asks Rei-san if they're seriously entering. He confirms it. One member claims they aren't mentally ready, but another hurries them along. The entire group leaps into the portal, falling through a vast blue expanse. At the bottom, a sign proclaims, "The Waterfall Test." They reach the deepest point of the 12th waterfall, a place stunning enough to be mistaken for heaven. A girl asks if anyone's actually seen heaven before, announcing she's taking command. Surprised, another woman asks if Rei-san isn't the leader. Rei explains that Lumi is Gold Farm's guildmaster. Group battle management is best left to a healer who monitors everyone's HP. The new commander gives the signal to begin conquering the final waterfall. A system message declares the test has started. They must resist monster attacks for 600 seconds to complete the mission. A man notes that only one survivor is needed to pass, but his companion thinks that will be tough. A horde of monsters erupts from the water, and they realize surviving 10 minutes against this many enemies will be brutal. The leader orders Rei-san to use Soul Thread and Incineration Formation in Area F. Rei compliments the order and preps his attack, unleashing a massive fiery explosion on the area. Next, she directs Tsukino-san to support Area B, which Tsukino confirms. Suddenly, monsters begin raining down from above. Their impact strikes some of the people below. The healer uses an area heal skill to recover everyone. The commander warns that the subunit's missed attacks will fall on them, so they must be careful. One guy comments that while the damage from above isn't huge, it hampers movement, making him worry. Above the waterfall, a Genesis Wings member blocks an attack. One guy complains that the spike attacks are trouble. Rei yells for Lumi to execute pattern C5, but Tsukino tells her to ignore the situation above and focus on her own position. Lumi orders everyone to gather in areas B and C, reducing the impact zone and mitigating damage from falling debris. The group understands and swiftly moves to their designated spots. A girl warns Lumi-san she's out of MP. The leader replies that was expected and orders her to retreat. Tsukino charges into the fire, unleashing her infernal slash attack. A companion asks Blood not to use Blood Hell since the healer can't support it. He understands and extinguishes the small flame in his hand. A monster attacks a member, and a teammate yells at him not to look away. Someone rallies the group. Just one more minute and the test is complete. They need a final push. The healer tells everyone to stop using healing skills. She'll handle the last minute with continuous healing, activating her area regeneration. Tsukino yells at her to stop, arguing that everyone is near death. But Lumi asserts that she is in command, and using healing skills is forbidden. She orders Yuto-san to help Ruside and Rei-san to cover the south side. She then asks those with high HP to form a defensive wall, and one man agrees to be the shield. With 5 seconds remaining, he blocks incoming attacks. 2 swordsmen fight a monster together as the clock ticks down. At only 3 seconds left, the group unites to resist the pressure. A boy watches closely as the final second approaches. Rei jumps into a crowd of monsters, drawing his dagger just as time runs out. A blinding light fills the area. A system message announces time is up. With 57 survivors, conditions are met, and the waterfall test is successfully completed. The survivors breathe a sigh of relief after the battle. A man comments that the people of Asia are saved, and his companion silently agrees. The system asks for the hunting group's name, and informs them they will be teleported in 10 minutes. The 2 leaders look at each other amidst the calm. The girl registers the group name as Gold Farm and Genesis Wings Joint Party. Tsukino remarks that it's finally over, and Lumi asks if anyone died. Lumi confirms on a panel that the main force was 57 people, and everyone survived. Tsukino then questions why the mission completion was so close. Rei explains that fewer monsters fell than expected, which made things easier for their group. He then realizes the subunit must have fought recklessly to reduce the enemy numbers and wonders if they are okay. Tsukino tries contacting the subunit, asking if they are alive. She squeezes the device in her hands upon receiving the answer. Rei orders the wounded to jump into the waterfall, and for those who can't move to be thrown in. Lumi explains there are no healers up there, which is why they saved their recovery skills as much as possible. He insists they hurry, because waiting for automatic withdrawal will be too late for some. Tsukino relays the order to send the seriously wounded, as they will treat them there. The recovery team spots the wounded arriving and rushes to help. Multiple bodies begin falling through the water. The group supports the injured companions arriving. A woman approaches carrying a man, begging for quick treatment. Lumi uses a small heal on one fallen guy. She instructs everyone to limit recovery skills to the bare minimum needed to keep them alive and save MP. Another healer uses light healing on a companion. A member reports no one else is on the verge of death, and they still have plenty of MP. Tsukino sighs in relief, wondering if they somehow managed it. She asks if all wounded are accounted for. Lumi says she is confirming with the subunit before agreeing to handle their side. Suddenly, Tsukino turns with a shocked expression. The leader finds Fumika-san on the ground, gravely injured. Lumi announces there are no more wounded and everyone can use their MP for recovery skills. Several healers use regeneration, extra heal, and perfect heal spells. Even with the healing, the girl coughs up blood. The group comments that despite high-level skills, the wounds are too severe. Limb regeneration will take time she might not have. One member suggests using healing magic to restore her HP for now. Fumika thanks them, saying she feels a little better. Tsukino questions why she overdid it, reminding her that wasn't the plan. The young woman explains the monsters started heading toward Tsukino's group, and she couldn't just ignore it. Fumika remains under the effect of healing spells. She closes her eyes silently, and Tsukino insists on knowing why. A man turns to Lumi, questioning why she didn't say anything earlier. Lumi states that even if she had, it wouldn't have changed anything. She explains the decision to fight recklessly was made by those above. The best choice was to focus on saving maximum recovery skills, but one of the men yells at her to stop. Tsukino then confesses she knew from the start it was impossible to complete the mission without casualties given their strength. The boy is surprised by the revelation. Rei defends Lumi, stating her command was flawless, and casualties occurred due to lack of combat power. He reveals one person died there and 3 others were reported dead upstairs. They could have reduced the number if they hadn't helped the Black Dragon. Tsukino asks if he has perhaps awakened a desire to help others. With his back turned, he simply replies it's because it's profitable. At the camp, 4 bodies are laid out for wake. The boy asks her not to blame herself so much. He explains that the American and European tests had hundreds of casualties, so having only 4 sacrifices is something to be proud of. She remains with a somber expression. Tsukino asserts the low number of sacrifices was thanks to Gold Farm. A woman praises Lumi's incredible instructions, perfectly managing so many fighters and preserving recovery magic. She adds that Lumi might be the country's best healer for HP management, but she reminds them that Rei devised the strategy, since Lumi gave orders for areas she couldn't see. The woman deduces Rei predicted all scenarios and communicated them to Lumi, who just needed to confirm the situation to issue commands. However, memorizing so many scenarios and issuing commands is Lumi's special talent. The girl wonders if predicting everything before battle is even possible, and the boy beside her says usually not. He concludes that with Rei, maybe it is. Back in his room, Rei dries his hair and asks Misa what's happening with the African test. She begins explaining that about 300 people, including top players who stayed behind, attempted the challenge. Misa concludes her report stating everyone was completely annihilated. She explains there is no force left on the African continent capable of challenging the test, as reinforcements suffered accidents and couldn't arrive in time. Given this, the strategy for the African test seems hopeless. Rei reflects on the plane crashes, and Misa asserts the fall of the African continent is practically certain. She wonders if this sabotage could be the Dark Guild's work, but he thinks it's hard to say. He explains the Dark Guild wouldn't have the power to down planes simultaneously worldwide, so a larger organization must be involved. Then, with a determined look, he states they will find out soon. The group arrives at Narita Airport Terminal 1. A crowd welcomes them with a banner calling them Asia's guardian deity. Everyone cheers Tsukino-sama's name and thanks her for protecting Japan. Tsukino and her team are surrounded by camera flashes, while someone calls for Rei-sama. Rei's group observes Tsukino's overwhelming popularity. He then comments that the popularity of prominent players helps increase test rewards, but despite the celebration, the individuals in question don't seem satisfied. One boy gets irritated with the festive atmosphere, questioning what people think about the members who died. Tsukino asks him not to blame the citizens, as for them, this is the day Japan was saved. She then asserts they really did protect Japan. Later, rain falls over the Gold Farm office. The team gathers in a dark room watching a screen. In the broadcast, a figure sits on a throne. Rei watches intently. A notification shows total assets in the Kenya Foreign Investment Channel reached 4 billion yen. The live stream shows a man in an armchair with a timer indicating time remaining for the Sea of Trees test failure. He points a finger up, announcing less than a minute remains for the end of the African test. The current investment is a nuclear shelter, built 40 meters underground at a total cost of 1 billion yen. The man watches various messages arriving on his phone. Inside the shelter, water, food, satellite communication, and emergency power sources are already prepared. He raises his glass, saying that once the poor who can't enter the shelter are eliminated, they will simply take their resources. Betting on whether the test would fail was a risk, but it seems he won. Time runs out, and the man announces it's starting. In the middle of the forest, energy forms between the trees. Then a portal opens at the location. A force erupts violently from the ground. Several tendrils rise and grab people. The man bids farewell to the poor Africans. The tendrils continue emerging from the earth. He takes a sip of his drink as a panel on the wall behind him starts making noise and cracking. The investor reacts strangely to what is happening. Suddenly, tendrils burst violently through the shelter wall. He is dragged into the middle of the tendrils, disbelieving what he sees. The tendrils continue spreading throughout the location. Completely enveloped, the man screams as he's pulled away. He implores for help in his last moments. Then, his hand falls lifeless next to the camera. In the room, the group watches the conclusion of the live stream. A woman comments that not even a nuclear shelter is enough, but Ray asserts he underestimated a continental class test. He adds that, more importantly, something is about to happen soon. A system panel appears in the middle of the meeting room. The message announces all continental class tests are complete. The tutorial has ended, and the first update will be implemented. The news leaves the group completely surprised. One guy asks about the first update, and a female companion confirms there weren't any during the prologue. Ray takes a sip of his drink and says he can predict what's about to happen. Then, a system notification announces new rare rewards will be added, difficulty will increase, and the number of tests will grow. In Shinjuku, Tokyo, people are startled by panels appearing out of nowhere, and a test begins. A huge energy portal manifests in the middle of the city. The system announces the Cave Test, a regional challenge to defeat the boss in 10 days, or the area will be annihilated. Simultaneously, another portal appears with the Forest Test, with the same rules and deadline. Back at the office, the group is amazed at the idea of 2 tests in the same location, but Ray denies it. One of the women realizes what is really happening. Suddenly, individual panels appear for each team member. Everyone reacts seriously to the new situation. A new portal opens over the port, announcing the port test in Tokyo's 23 districts with a 15-day deadline. Another test, the glass test, appears in various districts, including Chiyoda and Shibuya, with the same deadline. Next, the school test is announced for Shinjuku and Toshima districts, also with 15 days. A fourth challenge, the gold mine test, appears with an 18-day deadline in more districts. Finally, the Rocky Mountain test surfaces in Tokyo with a 21-day deadline, and the shallow waters test appears in Tokyo with a 25-day deadline. The group reacts to yet another new appearance. Then a national scale test is announced for all of Japan, the tsunami test, with a 60-day deadline. One boy realizes the sheer number of tests and the arrival of a national class challenge. The immense quantity of portals over the city reveals that everything was just a tutorial. Energy portals take over the city's night sky. A man on the street wonders what the hell is happening. One boy questions if this is the only location with tests. A woman informs them there were originally 9 tests. She reveals the national database already reported over 10,000 occurrences, and one man doubts they can handle it. With current capacity at 2 to 100 cases per day, it would take about a week to clear everything, if no new ones appeared. Ray then asserts this isn't right. He reminds everyone this was the situation before the update, and that test difficulty would increase. One boy wonders how much harder they will become without prior information, but Ray corrects him, saying even in PRO Online, tests with the same name sometimes had different difficulty levels. The boy realizes the hardest version is appearing offline, and handling 10,000 of them would be impossible. Ray agrees that clearing them all would be nearly impossible. He then asks Misa if test rewards were decided, but she explains the government is overwhelmed. Misa informs them there is a request for Gold Farm to focus on major urban areas, and Ray just asks for her estimate. He asks what the reward value will be. Misa explains the previous reward ranged from 300,000 to 1 million, but with the urgency and difficulty, she estimates it will now be around 3 million yen. Ray thinks 3 million isn't bad at all. He instructs Misa to negotiate with the government to ensure the value doesn't drop, and she promises to do her best. She wonders why he's worried about 3 million now, since it's a huge amount. Ray explains that since the estimated difficulty might not be accurate, he and Yuto will do the first test together. Yuto adds that way they can escape if the situation proves dangerous. Ray asks Lumi to gather members at the office and wait, as they will start assembling teams once difficulty is determined. Rain falls over a rocky mountain. Before the Rocky Mountain test portal, a group of people gathers. They comment on increased difficulty and wonder if an unknown local guild can handle the challenge. A man in glasses reassures them, saying a bigger guild will intervene if necessary, as Tokyo is a priority. Then 2 figures approach and walk toward the portal. One man recognizes a face, claiming they are Genesis members he saw at the victory parade. Another corrects him, saying they are GF members named Ray and Yuto, leaving the first man confused. One observer comments GF might not have many members, but all are skilled and the test will be in good hands. When Ray and Yuto prepare to enter, a voice orders them to stop. A man appears announcing that test is being cleared by them, the Clause of Glory, mentioning the government rule that whoever arrives first has priority. Ray contacts Misa to confirm the information, and she explains rewards are still under negotiation. Then he asks if she knows the Clause of Glory Guild. Misa informs him it's a medium-sized guild from Narima district, with 2 S-class members and about 40 C-class. The man gets irritated at not being recognized, claiming he's famous in the area, and asks who they are. Ray simply replies, they are Gold Farm. The other guild member is shocked to hear the name. He realizes they are Gold Farm, the Continental Test Team, and now recognizes their faces. Ray asks them to leave the test to his team, as the Claws of Glory lack the strength to complete it. The boy accuses him of wanting to steal rewards and mentions a rumor that Gold Farm is a bunch of money-hungry vultures. While Ray wonders who spread such lies, Yuto reflects that this kind of thing spreads because it's true. The man's phone rings. It's a call from his leader, Rito-san. He answers hurriedly, asking the leader how the clearing is going. On the other end, the leader asks for help before the call cuts off. A loud noise echoes through the phone, shocking the boy. The call goes silent suddenly, and he doesn't understand what happened. It's the sound of a massive explosion. He turns to Ray and asks if that sound was what he's thinking, and Ray confirms. Ray explains that is the high-difficulty version of the Rocky Mountain test, with difficulty equivalent to a national test, exactly as he predicted. The man falls to his knees. Ray asks how long since the test started, and he replies about 30 minutes. Desperate, the boy implores them to save his team members. Ray observes him silently. The man offers all the money he has for them to rescue at least the survivors, but Ray refuses, stating the chances of survivors are very low. The boy can't believe what he's hearing. Then Ray offers him $3 million to guarantee his life, provided he does nothing unnecessary. He warns, however, that he cannot guarantee if there are any survivors. The man is astonished by these words. As soon as the monster appeared, the two warriors advanced together to attack. The creature was hit full-on by the energy of their simultaneous strikes. Then, the more skilled one dealt a precise blow that cracked the enemy's shell. Right after the battle, he adjusted his gauntlet while his partner watched. Meanwhile, Tomo watched everything from further back, questioning how the monster was defeated so fast. While running toward the group, he reflected on the vast level difference between players. Ahead, an immense door with glowing inscriptions appeared at the end of the cave. The group walked toward the entrance, preparing for what would come next. The swordsman commented that this must be the boss room, a simple challenge for a regional test. Suddenly, the door lock began to undo itself with an intense glow. The gates groaned and opened slowly, releasing a cloud of dust. A towering silhouette appeared in the passage, surprising everyone watching. Tomo recognized the figure and shouted that his leader was alive. However, even without understanding, he noticed something strange in the man's reaction, who just stared back. The figure then fell on top of him. Lying on the floor, he just reacted with surprise to what he saw. Then realization hit, and he began screaming. Meanwhile, the two warriors watched the event, trying to process the sudden attack. With the body's fall, light from the entrance revealed a hall full of other fallen warriors. As they entered, the archer commented there seemed to be no survivors. The swordsman concluded that even with better equipment, the mission was too much for a guild of that size. Suddenly, a shadowy creature was attacking those who had just arrived. The beast fired an attack, and the warriors had to dive aside to avoid impact. While smoke dissipated, both repositioned to face the new threat. The group leader commented that last time they had blown a hole in its stomach. The creature revealed itself completely, showing its giant spider form. An interface appeared, identifying the monster as the Vermilion Spider. The companion beside asked what they should do against a national-level enemy. The question was repeated as one of the spider's legs descended like a blade. The swordsman prepared for combat, replying, they just needed to hit it casually. He concentrated for the attack, remembering he couldn't defeat it with conventional methods last time. He raised his weapon, which began glowing intensely. Then, he ordered the goat dagger to awaken, unleashing all its power. The two warriors watched the scene. Surprised by the weapon's transformation, the swordsman launched a soul cut with the dagger toward the creature. The spider received the direct impact of the blow, which generated a large explosion. He observed the attack's result, stating that with his current stats, that was nothing. A system message appeared, confirming the Black Mountain test was successfully completed. The swordsman agreed with the analysis, but suddenly noticed something strange. His partner asked why the announcement of the test's disappearance hadn't appeared yet. A new screen informed that a hidden condition had been activated, generating an extra test as a penalty. Confused, the warrior turned to Tomo and asked how many people challenged that test. The boy explained his entire guild decided to enter, while he was the only one left behind as a lookout. Hearing that, the leader processed the information, calculating the number of members exceeded 30. An interface appeared, displaying names of participants available for the new challenge. Yudo questioned if this was an extra test they couldn't survive at their current level. The swordsman admitted that in terms of combat power, the situation would be quite difficult. Even so, he explained at least one person needed to be selected, and there would be no major penalties in case of failure. The archer repeated the condition that at least one person had to participate, now with a worried look. Suddenly, both looked at Tomo, who reacted surprised by the attention. The boy panicked and asked not to be used as a sacrifice, refusing to participate. Ignoring the protests, The swordsman pressed the button on the system screen and confirmed selection. The interface showed only his name had been chosen, finalizing the list of challengers. The lookout was paralyzed, not understanding what had just happened. The warrior turned to him and said he had promised to guarantee his life, as he always kept promises made with money. His body began dissolving into data particles. The other two warriors just watched the scene, stunned by his sudden disappearance. As he faded, he gave a final order for Yudo to warn the others not to enter the test under any circumstances. Even trying to call him back, the archer realized it was too late to stop him. Once the leader completely disappeared, the two were left behind, staring at the spot where he had been. Soon after, the two warriors were enveloped in light and began to disappear from the location. While the system announced the transfer of non-challengers, the archer just whispered his partner's name. He remembered when they were left behind in the past, in a game called Pro-On. Meanwhile, the swordsman walked alone into the portal of the new challenge. An intense light shone on the location for an instant. The two warriors reappeared safely outside the gates. The archer commented that when the game became reality, he thought his partner had sold his soul for money. Even so, he concluded that part of him hadn't changed, while the warrior faced a red portal in a new room. Alone in the extra challenge, he prepared for what was to come. The warrior climbed a long stone staircase alone, stepping into an unknown place. He moved forward in silence. Reaching the top, he stepped onto a grassy field and passed through a stone gate. He took in the new surroundings. The sun shined brightly in the background. It was a vast open field, dotted with distant rock formations. A system window popped up, detailing an extra test, a tribute to the reckless. Below that, the failure condition was clear. Everyone participating in the test would die. The swordsman opened his own status window to check his stats. He analyzed the 26 level difference. This was tantamount to suicide. Still, he knew this was exactly how to obtain items meant for higher levels. He activated his soul eye and focused it on the extra test. A new window revealed that a Type B rock complete soul could be extracted. Seeing the result, he commented that a complete soul had finally appeared. The extraction requirement demanded defeating several monsters, starting with the ruby centipede. Next, the system showed the sapphire longhorn beetle. Finally, the emerald dragonfly and the onyx stag beetle were revealed. The list continued with the quartz beetle and the opal wasp as the next targets. Then, the barrel scorpion was displayed as the final monster on the list. A progress screen appeared, indicating the mission required the annihilation of every monster type. He prepared himself for the coming confrontation. Immediately, a swarm of creatures advanced towards him. Facing the threat, he concluded there was no room for holding back. He opened the soul flame furnace and used a soul fragment as fuel. A wave of energy completely enveloped him, unleashing immense power. A notification confirmed the defeat of the targets and announced that the door to the deeper levels was open. He crossed a bridge into a new dark, reddish location. As he advanced, he moved stealthily to avoid detection by the boss. With a quick movement, he cut through the group of scorpions, and the system confirmed the objective complete. He flew through the dragonflies, and the system registered another victory. After the battle, he checked and found only the quartz beetle remained. Suddenly, a glow caught his attention, revealing something unexpected. A ring of energy formed in the air. Then, an explosion hurled him backward with the force of the impact. He slid across the ground to absorb the recoil of his landing. The swordsman composed himself and faced the challenge ahead. Up ahead, the creature stood atop a structure, awaiting the confrontation. A system window opened, identifying the test boss as the Diamond Mantis. The creature leapt and unleashed a devastating blow with its blades. In response, the warrior raised his weapon, which began to release a massive amount of energy. Holding the weapon firm, the warrior prepared for his next move. He immediately charged the monster, blade in hand. Energy began to emanate from his eyes as he approached. He jumped and launched a soul cut toward the creature's chest. His gaze shone intensely at the moment of attack. However, with a quick movement, the mantis blocked the blow, stating that it was too weak. The impact made the ground tremble and kicked up debris across the arena. Even so, the swordsman recovered from the impact, commenting that he had hoped the creature would take a little longer to show up. The mantis called him a foolish human. It asked why he chose to challenge it, even when he had the option not to. The creature questioned if he truly thought he could defeat it. The challenger just stared back in silence. He replied that he never thought he could win. He gripped his dagger, stating there was only one chance. With a determined look, he explained he was only fulfilling his promise not to be noticed. The creature asked if he would keep that promise by sacrificing himself in the process. The mantis prepared to attack, revealing its full spirit. With blades raised, the monster promised it would at least let him die quickly. Then it dove toward him for the final attack. At the last second, The swordsman yelled, "Now!" and kicked an object aside to create a distraction. The enemy turned toward the object, questioning if he believed its intentions wouldn't be noticed. The creature launched an attack at him, sending him to face the consequences of his actions. The warrior activated Soul Reserve. He jumped to escape the attack. Even so, he ended up injured on his back. Meanwhile, the kicked object flew toward the hidden quartz beetle. The insect was hit squarely by the item, causing a massive explosion. The monster was imprisoned by a formation of flaming soul threads. Even trapped, the beetle reacted, trying to free itself from the snare. A system window confirmed that the quartz beetle had been defeated. Another message announced that extraction conditions were met, and the Type B rock soul was obtained. The system initiated item creation using the complete soul as material, but it also required a catalyst soul. With a sphere of energy in hand, the swordsman revealed that the catalyst was his own soul. Finally, one last message announced the start of creation and welcomed him to the world of complete soul.